Chapter 1642. The Dragon Clan and the Stone Statue Clan were almost isolated from the upper realm. They would not open the Whirlpool Passage except for normal matters, so they had no idea that someone had set up a seal outside. Of course, since the 10 immortal sects came to seal, if they knew that everyone was standing on the sea looking at each other, the scene would be awkward. Moreover, this was not the first time they had done this. They had done it when dealing with the demonic clan. Even someone as strong as the demon ancestor had fallen for it. In fact, even if the seal was successful, it would not last for long, because the immortal sect's current ability was not enough to replicate the glory of their predecessors. This involved the problem of improvement only when there was competition. Back then, the demon ancestors' existence threatened the entire upper realm. Their predecessors did not care about the cost and the price to study the sealing technique. After he was destroyed, the younger generation no longer had a threat and began to gradually become tired. It did not matter. The original intention was not to completely seal off the two clans. As long as they delayed for a while, it would be enough to destroy the sect of all times. However, the miserable 10 immortal sects would never have thought that Jun Changshao would actually sneak in on the Eternal without knowing. The most ridiculous thing was that he even told the Dragon Clan not to participate, and that he could solve it himself. How arrogant was that? Okay, Long Outyin said. I'll listen to the Patriarch. Go ahead. Jun Changshao got up and said, I still have to go to the stone statue domain. This time, he did not use the Eternal's ability to travel through the void. After all, it would cost a lot of resources to activate it, so he chose to set off from the Stone Dragon Highway. Stone Statue Domain Clan Hall. Jun Changshao sat on the clan leader's seat. The 3 ministers and the civil and military officials bowed and shouted, Welcome back, clan leader. Everyone please rise. Being the clan leader and being the patriarch were 2 completely different experiences. This made Jun Changshao feel a little smug. Of course, he did not come here to enjoy the worship. He immediately told them about the immortal sect's sealing. What? After hearing the news, the Grand Tutor was furious. How dare they seal the Stone Statue Clan? This is intolerable. Let's go. Let's go out and fight them. The officials were furious. They were only waiting for the clan leader's order to fight with the 10 immortal sects. Ancestral land. This was a very serious matter. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, If they want to confer ancestral lands, then let them do so. The 3 dukes and 9 ministers were dumbfounded. The 10 great immortal sects want to cut off the connection between us. I'll do as they wish. Completing the epic quest and breaking through the peak of the truth-seeking realm gave Jun Changshao greater confidence. The best way to defeat the enemy was to let them think that victory was in their grasp. In the end, they would come looking for trouble and lose miserably, losing so badly that they wouldn't even have their underwear left. Kikik. Every time Jun Changshao thought of the 10 great immortal sects coming to him for trouble and being tortured by him at the foot of the mountain, he couldn't help but cover his face and laugh sinisterly. Come on. I can't help but want to slap your faces. Ling Tian Celestial Sect. The 10 big shots sat in the hall. During this period of time, they had a small meeting every 3 days and a large meeting every 5 days to discuss how to deal with the sect of all times. The dog exterminating operation this time was led by the Ling Tian Immortal Sect. Just the meeting alone cost at least 1 million magnetite. In my opinion, the easiest way is to send the elites and powerhouses of the sect to attack the sect of all times directly after sealing off the 2 clans, and not give them any chance to recover. The Patriarch of the Hidden Immortal Sect said, We have to have a proper reason. Yes, we can't let the world gossip about us. In the past, the reason for exterminating the demonic clan was that it was a disaster to the common people. The sect of all times came to the upper realm and killed them directly without doing anything bad. What would the world think of the immortal sect? It was alright. At least they followed the rules. If it was the evil sect, they would definitely not follow the procedures. Jun Changshao is extremely arrogant. It seems like it's very easy for him to have a conflict with the other sects. The Patriarch of the Supreme Immortal Sect said as he winked. Everyone immediately understood his intention. Magnificent Heaven Sect. The patriarch Lin Shangyi paced back and forth in the study. The elders beside him had serious expressions. Everyone. After a while, he stopped and said in a serious tone, "What should we do? Since the immortal sect has given the order, we can't refuse. We can only obey." Sigh. Lin Shangyi shook his head and said, "Why would such a difficult task fall on our magnificent Heaven Sect?" Just now, the 10 major immortal sects sent an encrypted letter. The content was to find a way to have a conflict with the sect of all times. The bigger the matter, the better. Naturally, the magnificent Heaven Sect had heard of Jun Changshao and knew that his master was Senior Tonggu. If it was in the past, they would definitely not dare to offend him. Now that there was an order from above, they could only obey. The true sect had appeared before. The true sect had not appeared before. Today, not only did they appear, but they were also ordered to cause trouble. As expected, if they did not appear, they would not appear. Once they appeared, they would cause trouble for the main character. The trick was too obvious. Sect of all times. Ka ka ka. Bang bang bang. On the assembly line, the disciples were operating skillfully. Pieces of parts were produced and piled up in a fixed area. They were sorted and assembled by professionals. The camera gradually moved to the workshop. A few lines of words were written on the wall: excellence, quality casting. Puffed. Mao Xiaodao vomited blood and fainted on the ground. Quick, quick. Sun Bukong waved his hand and said, "Pull him out for emergency treatment." Swoosh. A few medical hall members hurried over and quickly carried the patient onto a stretcher. A medical staff followed to perform CPR and faintly heard Mao Xiaodao say weakly, I can still work, senior brother." An outer sect disciple called White Noodles walked forward and pulled his hand. He said sternly, "Leave the rest to me." After saying that, he put on his work uniform and stood resolutely in front of the machine. Similar scenes appeared frequently in the workshop. When a disciple fell, thousands of disciples would take his place. The spirit of the sect of all times. Jun Changshao, who was standing in the workshop office, raised his hand and clenched his fist. He said passionately, "Forever! Forever! Forever!" The disciples in front of the machine seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. They worked even harder and harder. The forging hall was busy, but the array hall was not idle either. After a large number of mecha parts were sent over, the members not only had to assemble them, but also set up the internal array. Efficient work in exchange for efficient production. In just half a month, hundreds of Diablo 3 were successfully delivered to the War Cavalry Hall. Phew! Sitting in the third-generation mecha, Jingji took a deep breath and then put her hands on the activation array. Suddenly, various data appeared on the screen in front of her. Power unit normal. Defense unit normal. Combat unit normal. Zhong Yi, who was sitting in the monitoring room, ordered start. Yes. Swoosh. 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 Jingji quickly used her fingers to move the array suspended under her palm. The internal power system operated until the rod was pushed up. The third-generation Diablo 3 flew out close to the runway, and then quickly spread its wings and sprinted into the sky. We did it! We did it! Outside the array hall, the members of the mecha research team cheered excitedly. After countless days and nights of research, countless days and nights of hard work, they finally got their reward today. The Taishian old man lowered his head and quietly wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes. He whispered, "The wind is a bit strong." Chapter 1643. The third-generation Diablo made from heavenly spirit quenching ores had its overall defense greatly increased. Coupled with the newly researched formation system and Dao stones, after many tests, its combat power was comparable to an 8-revolution core realm cultivator. Putting down the evaluation sheet, Jun Patriarch smiled. Although this level was not enough to face the 10 great celestial sects, if it could be mass-produced in the future and formed into an army, it would be invincible. What a pity. The system poured cold water on him. Not enough ores. There were only 100 tons of heavenly spirit quenching ores, and half of it was used to make armor. The third-generation Diablo was destined to have limited production. Jun Changshao said, "When I travel the upper universe in the future, do you think I won't be able to find ores?" The items rewarded by the mission were mostly stolen from other places, so he firmly believed that there was nothing too strange in the boundless universe. The only thing missing was for him to discover and mine. "Good," the system said. "Host, are you going to change your profession to interstellar robber?" "No way," Jun Changshao said proudly. "I have my own bottom line. I can take things that have no owner, and I can exchange for things that have an owner." In the vast universe, there were many planes that did not have the ability to leave their homes. He could use Eternal to travel through them and become a reselling merchant. For example, he could use the pills in the pill pavilion to exchange for various martial arts resources. Don't say. This was a way to make money. Moreover, every plane had its own unique heaven and earth system that nurtured different martial arts resources. There might be a large number of heavenly spirit quenching ores somewhere. Of course, the ultimate goal was to let himself and his sect have absolute strength, until the day when they could invade the star spirit world. Jun Changshao hated this plane not because it had invaded the upper world, but because it had invaded the falling star continent. If not for Eternal arriving in time to resolve the disaster, the world he lived in would have ceased to exist. The blood feud was irreconcilable. Go Sheng was a narrow-minded person. The star spirit world had tried to harm his family in the falling star continent. Sooner or later, he would leave the upper world and attack. Don't worry, it would come soon. Because he, who was in the upper world, already had the capital to contend with the 10 great celestial sects. As long as the matter here was perfectly solved, and the main mission was completed, the wandering sect would officially open. The array formation hall and the forging hall were dog-tired, but the disciples of the sect were not idle. Apart from cultivating, they did not forget to complete the sect's missions, constantly providing Jun Changshao with a 3-value income. However, on the most ordinary day, something bad happened. A few outer sect disciples who were out on a mission got into a quarrel with a group of martial artists in a forbidden area, which then escalated into an all-out brawl. Xingqian. After Jun Changshao received the news, he ordered, "Go and take a look." Yes. Yi Xingqian accepted the order and quickly set off. It was inevitable to have conflicts in the martial world. Sending a random disciple to deal with it was a bit too much. Boom! Outside of Forbidden Land, a powerful energy fluctuation swept up a cloud of dust. Plop! A martial artist in embroidered robes slumped to the ground like mud, his face almost swollen like a pig's head. Ta! Yi Xingqian raised his foot and stepped on his head, saying coldly, "A piece of trash like you dares to cause trouble for my sect of all times." After this guy arrived at the scene, he did not ask for the reason or right or wrong. He directly grabbed the martial artist who was arguing with his fellow sect members and gave him a series of attacks. One word, simple and violent. Damn it! In the distance, the companions of the people who were stepped on were furious. One of them took a few steps back and raised a prop that looked like a fire starter. Immediately, with a bang, a stream of light flew into the sky and turned into a bright firework. A cloud-piercing arrow. Thousands of troops came to meet him? TSK. Yi Xingqian sneered and kicked the person under his foot away. He hugged his hands together, planning to wait for the other party's reinforcements to come. After obtaining the body of the demon ancestor and increasing his realm, he was even more arrogant than before. This was the Night Emperor, the tragic man who had been around for thousands of years in his previous life, and almost offended all the 9 emperors. In the end, he died at the hands of his fiancée. "Kid," a martial artist said angrily, "you're in big trouble." Boom. Just as he finished speaking, Yi Xingqian appeared in front of him and slapped him, sending him flying hundreds of feet away. He said calmly, "Noisy. Powerful. Too arrogant. This person's aura is not weak. He should be a high-ranking member of the sect of all times, right?" The itinerant cultivators gathered outside the forbidden area discussed in private. Yi Xingqian frowned. These itinerant cultivators who were not strong knew which sect they were from. The martial artists who were looking for trouble were obviously from a faction based on their attire. Had they not heard of the Sect of all times? Forcefully lowering one's intelligence? Or did they have a strong background? Swish. Swish. While he was deep in thought, streams of light shot over from afar. When they hovered in the sky above the mountain forest, the light scattered, revealing four sage-like old men. All of them wore khaki-colored long robes with special tokens hanging from their waists. Their auras were extraordinary. "This is," one of the itinerant cultivators exclaimed, "Tianhua Dao Sect." Yi Xingchen suddenly understood. It was no wonder that the people who were beaten up were so stubborn. It turned out that their background was a towering sect. "Elder Huang." The Tianhua Dao Sect disciple pointed angrily and said, "These people snatched our earth-responsive stone, and even injured 2 of our senior brothers." "Bullshit." The outer sect disciple named Lu Baiwan roared. "We dug out the earth-responsive stone in the forbidden area first. You guys are shameless enough to say that you found it first." So that was the case. Yi Xingchen understood the cause of the matter. As a member of the Sect of all times, there was no reason for him to trust his fellow sect members. Thus he said calmly, "So what if we really snatched it?" In the cruel martial arts world, one did not have the ability to protect their own things. To sum it up, being a noob was the original sin. Yi Xingchen's words provoked the 4 experts from the Tianhua Dao sect. They looked angry on the surface, but they were secretly delighted. The Sect of all times was indeed arrogant. Wasn't it easy to find a reason to incur their hatred? "Brat," the leading elder said coldly, "since you snatched something from our sect, you naturally have to hand it over. Since you beat up our disciples, you naturally have to be punished." Swish. With a casual flick of his finger, a true spirit stream shot out. The best way to find trouble was to escalate the conflict. Injuring this brat should be able to alert Jun Changshao. The other sects were all avoiding the Sect of all times, afraid that they would accidentally provoke them. Only the Tianhua Dao sect had to do their best to offend them, because of their orders. Thus, the situation would develop to an uncontrollable stage. Otherwise, how would the top 10 immortal sects appear? Boom! A palm print appeared, and a stream of light exploded. Yi Xingchen retracted his palm and said disdainfully, "The person who will punish me has not been born yet." The experts from the Tianhua Dao sect had a slight change in expression. This brat's aura was only at the core transformation realm. How could he easily break Elder Huang's Tianhua finger? This was because Yi Xingchen and the outer sect disciples of the Sect of all times had all cultivated the hidden cultivation technique. They liked to circulate it all the time, making it impossible for others to see their true cultivation realm. "Heh," Elder Huang sneered and said, "No wonder you are so arrogant. So you have some ability." Whoosh, whoosh. As he spoke, his long robe fluttered without any wind. The power of his true spirit burst forth, revealing his lower truth-seeking realm. Yi Xingchen said indifferently, "The 4 of you better come at me together." "Brat, don't be arrogant." Elder Huang pushed his palms into the void, and the power of his true spirit surged out, as if it had turned into a sky full of roaring demon beasts. The powerful aura was crazy and wanton, causing the surrounding rocks and trees to crumble instantly. Swoosh! Yi Xingchen placed his left hand behind his back and raised his right hand gently. Ripples spread out like water, and instantly, dozens of heaven-crossing palm prints were released. The usage of this move could be said to be done in one go. Boom! 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 In an instant, the power that seemed like a beast horde was broken. Yi Xingchen stood proudly on the spot and looked at the other 3 people in the air lazily. "If you guys don't attack, this old man will be in trouble." Chapter 1644. Night Emperor easily broke the move. At the same time, the itinerant cultivators watching from afar were stunned. Swish! At this moment, Elder Huang emerged from the shockwave that had yet to dissipate. His true spirit erupted, causing his white beard to fly wildly. Sung mountain cover. Boom! 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 He struck out 3 consecutive palms in the air with both hands. Dense energy surged out and rapidly compressed the space, forming a palm print that covered more than half of the entire space. Whoosh! Whoosh! Violent shockwaves howled as space rapidly distorted and collapsed. The itinerant cultivators watching from afar were dumbfounded. A small matter had suddenly evolved into a battle at the level of a truth-seeking realm cultivator. The change in tempo was so fast that they did not expect it at all. Trash! Yi Xingchen raised his palm, and the 7 special powers hidden in heaven and earth instantly swarmed into his 5 fingers. 7 mystic sunglow break. Buzz! Buzz! 5 rays of light rapidly converged, exuding an extremely powerful aura. From this, it could be seen that Yi Xingchen, who had broken through to the truth-seeking realm, once again executed the 7 mystic sunglow break. Its power was far greater than that of a core transformation realm cultivator. This was a martial technique created by the 7 mystic sacred venerate. The higher the user's cultivation realm, the more powerful it would be. Swish! 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 5 rays of light pierced through the air like 5 sharp swords mercilessly. They brushed past Elder Huang at an extremely fast speed, causing him to stop in midair with a look of horror in his eyes. If those few types of energy had come even a little bit closer, he would have ended up dead. Swish! Swish! The pierced palm print gradually dissipated. Yi Xingchen retracted his hand and said proudly, "You've already died once." When he was breaking the move just now, he could have done it accurately, but he purposely missed by a little to let the other party experience the feeling of riding a roller coaster. Cold sweat seeped out of Elder Huang's forehead. "Elder Huang, are you all right?" His companion asked from afar. "What are you waiting for?" Elder Huang shouted. "Since this kid wants to fight 4 people at once, we naturally have to fulfill his wish." The itinerant cultivators' mouths twitched. Since they couldn't beat him, they were prepared to gang up on him. Were the experts of the Dao sect really that shameless? Elder Huang did not mind. He remembered the patriarch's order. Since he had brought people here, he had to make a big deal out of it. After all, he had the support of the 10 major celestial sects. All right. The other 3 elders flew over. Yi Xingchen shook his head, and the word attack appeared on his forehead and flashed. Ka ka ka. The lines gathered around his body, forming an unparalleled armor. Pa! Dense lines appeared in front of him. The moment he grabbed it, the sky piercer materialized. After the text effect was activated, Yi Xingchen's eyes instantly turned cold and sharp. A powerful aura erupted from his body. "Remember," he raised his head proudly and said, "My name is Yi Xingchen." Boom! The ground beneath his feet caved in, and a cloud of dust rose into the air. The camera automatically followed him, and saw that Yi Xingchen had already flown up into the sky. Under the sunlight, his enormous body was revealed. Senior brother Yi. Lu Baiwan and the other outer sect disciples' eyes were filled with strong admiration. Boom! 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 An earth-shattering battle was taking place in the sky. The battle was extremely tragic. In just a few moments, the surrounding mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. Boom! Dang dang dang. The 2 elders of the Tianhua Dao sect were swept by the powerful unparalleled force and staggered from the sky before falling to the ground. They only managed to stabilize their bodies after retreating hundreds of feet away. Then they couldn't help but spit out blood. Die! Seeing this, the other 2 companions attacked from the left and right. Boom boom! Yi Xingchen couldn't stop in time, and was attacked from the front and back. His entire body flew out and caved into the mountain. Senior brother Yi. Lu Baiwan and the others exclaimed. Ta! Yi Xingchen walked out of the mountain that was filled with rubble. He casually retrieved the sky piercer that was scattered in the distance. Then, he clasped his hands together and pressed hard on his joints, causing cracking sounds to be heard. Since you dared to harm my sect's disciples, I'll cripple your martial arts first. The 2 experts of the Tianhua Dao sect were pursued and attacked with the majestic force of the true spirit. Yi Xingchen stood on the spot and didn't move until the 2 forces pressed down on him. Then he casually took a step back. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a violent aura suddenly erupted from the mountains far away. A gigantic demonic beast dashed over with earth-shattering steps. Oh no! The two experts of the Tianhua Dao sect were shocked. Boom! Boom! In the blink of an eye, the demonic beast rushed in front of them and used its huge body and violent force to send them flying. Boom, 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 boom. The demonic beast's force was extremely terrifying. The two experts of the Tianhua Dao sect were caught off guard and were sent flying thousands of feet away. They caved into the mountain in the shape of a swastika. The sudden change stunned the itinerant cultivators. When they regained their senses, they saw a gigantic husky squatting in front of Yi Xingchen. It wasn't a husky. It was a Panhu beast. Someone recognized the demonic beast and was even more shocked. The Panhu clan was one of the thousands of clans in the upper world. They usually lived in their ancestral land. Why would they suddenly appear? From the moment it squatted beside Yi Xingchen and stuck out its tongue, everyone guessed that the two of them had signed a contract. The two experts of the Tianhua Dao sect walked out of the mountain with difficulty. Their faces were extremely ugly. The Panhu beast that suddenly appeared was obviously not weaker than them. Now that it was on the side of the sect of all times, the situation was not good. Go! Yi Xingchen ordered expressionlessly. Whoosh whoosh. The Panhu beast stood up and took a step forward. It got into an attacking position and roared. Woof! Woof woof woof. Plop! The itinerant cultivators fell to the ground. Ah! Yi Xingchen held his head and roared. I told you not to open your mouth. Why didn't you listen? Oh, the contract beast lowered its head. It looked even more adorable. This NATO contract beast was huge and had a strong demonic aura. It could bring immense pressure to people. However, when it roared, it turned from majestic to comical. Humph! Elder Huang and his three companions gathered again. They sneered. It's still in the form of a dog. We don't have to be afraid. Dog! The Panhu beast's hair stood on end. Its eyes were about to pop out. Roar! It roared again. The sound was deafening. Then, it stomped on the ground, and its huge body flew out like an arrow. Stop it! Boom boom boom. Boom 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 boom. The Panhu beast took the colorful energy bombs head-on and charged to the front of the four experts. It then used both its front and back limbs to attack like a mad dog. The situation was too tragic. There was no need to describe it. Of course, Yi Xingchen wasn't idle either. He brandished his Fangtian halberd and charged in. The master and servant instantly formed a 2-against-4 situation, and the magnificent Heaven Dao Sect's experts were beaten until they retreated in defeat. They were beaten until they lay on the ground covered in wounds. Too powerful. The itinerant cultivators were terrified. The cooperation between the man and the dog was impeccable. The Tianhua sect expert's defeat was not undeserved. Whoosh! The Panhu beast held Elder Huang in its mouth and placed him in front of its master. The latter's head was bleeding profusely. Yi Xingchen really wanted to throw a punch over and smash this old man into smithereens. However, he suppressed that thought and turned to look at the panicking magnificent Sky Dao sect disciples. He said coldly, if you want them to live, bring the money to the Aeon sect to ransom them. Chapter 1645. Although Yi Xingchen had changed his body, his soul had been subtly influenced by Jun Changshao, and he had learned to extort money from others. Sigh. It would be difficult to turn back if he continued down this path. However, from this battle, it could be seen that Yi Xingchen had the strength of a truth-seeking realm cultivator. He would not be at a disadvantage if he fought against 4 people of the same level. With a little help, he would immediately crush them. What a joke! The cultivation and hard work he had put in during this period was not a joke. Swish! Swish! Yi Xingchen left the forbidden area with the 4 severely injured elders of the magnificent Sky Dao sect. However, halfway there, he suddenly stopped in mid-air and looked at the mountains in the distance. His expression gradually darkened. Senior brother Yi, what's wrong? Lu Baiwan asked. Nothing. Yi Xingchen retracted his gaze and said, let's go. Just as he left with his fellow sect members and captives, clouds appeared in the forest in the distance and gradually formed a graceful figure. She said in a low voice, He actually broke through to the truth-seeking realm and has a contract beast of equal strength. Who? Empress Ling Yao. This woman who wholeheartedly wanted to overthrow the World Hall had rarely made an appearance after the invasion of the Star Spirit world. The reason for this was that there were some plots where even Jun Changshao could only play a supporting role, much less someone at the peak of the revolving core realm. Disciple. Perfected Qing Wei gradually appeared and said, "Don't waste your time on scheming. Follow Master to cultivate. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to defeat the patriarch of the sect of all times in the promise of 10 years. Empress Ling Yao shook her head and said, "My opponent is not Jun Changshao, but this Yi Xingchen." Perfected Qing Wei's face was filled with shock. She had forced her disciple to participate in the battle between Jinren Tonggu and Gu Hong Jinren. However, she did not know that Jun Changshao intended to let Yi Xingchen fight. She could guess that it was because there was a grudge between the two that had to be settled. If she guessed correctly, the entire sect of all times was probably hoping that she would die in his hands. That was right. That was what Go Sheng and his disciples thought. You can't blame them. If you want to blame someone, you have to blame Go Bai. Ever since Yi Xingchen joined the sect, Go Bai had always shown his monstrous anger. The enmity between the two of them was so deep that it was necessary to determine who would die and who would live. Sect of all times. After Yi Xingchen returned, he sat alone on the mountain peak. Even though he did not manage to catch sight of Empress Ling Yao in the forest earlier, he was still able to sense her aura. When I was fighting with the experts of the Tianhua Dao sect, this woman should have been watching in the dark. Would she have thought that I, who was once like an ant, would now have the cultivation of the truth-seeking realm? Yi Xingchen said expressionlessly. He wasn't showing off. Instead, the hatred in his heart was once again ignited, and he couldn't wait to take his revenge. This matter is over. Yi Xingchen clenched his fists and looked up at the sky. His gaze was cold as he said, "There must be an end to our enmity." The endless grassland. Empress Ling Yao was standing in an area filled with strange rocks. "Disciple," Perfected Qing Wei said seriously, "once you enter the grotto, life and death will be unpredictable. Are you sure you want to enter?" Empress Ling Yao fell into a short silence before murmuring, "You probably don't want me to be killed by you so easily, so I won't let him down." After saying that, she entered the grotto without looking back. Buzz! Streams of light flickered, forming a cage. Perfected Qing Wei shook her head and said, "As her master, I can't guess what my disciple is thinking at all." The 4 injured experts were locked up in the sect of all times. Because they were waiting for the Tianhua Dao sect to pay the ransom, Jun Changshao did not send them to the Tianyuan Prison Pagoda out of humanitarian considerations to receive Aria's careful care. Of course, in regards to Yi Xingchen's actions, Go Sheng gave a high degree of approval. He also taught his disciples that when they went out and had conflicts with other martial artists, they should be lenient where possible. If they really couldn't handle it, they should just capture them. However, he probably didn't know. When the Tianhua Dao sect found out that the elders were detained, they almost couldn't help but cheer on the spot. The 10 major immortal sects ordered them to find trouble with the sect of all times, and the bigger the better. Now that they were detained and had to pay the ransom, wasn't the problem very serious? "Quick," Lin Shangyi said. "Inform the immortal sects." In just half a day, the news was sent to the Lingtian immortal sect. After Lin Haoyan found out, he replied, "Send someone to ask for the ransom," resolutely refused to pay the ransom. Currently, the conflict between the two sects hadn't escalated to the point of the 10 major immortal sects taking action, so the problem had to be magnified. It would be best if the whole world knew about it. After receiving the instructions, Lin Shangyi's expression became interesting. The ones being detained were the elders of the Tianhua Dao sect. If they refused to pay the ransom and angered Jun Changshao, the loss would be huge. Sigh. Lin Shangyi sighed helplessly. If he had a choice, he really didn't want to offend the sect of all times. But now that he was directly ordered by the immortal sects to not resist, he could only obey. "Let's go. Follow me to the sect of all times." Patriarch. In the study, Yi Xingchen recounted what happened yesterday in detail. Then he said in confusion, "In my opinion, there must be something fishy about this matter." "Oh," Jun Changshao asked, "what's fishy about it?" Yi Xingchen held his chin and said, "Who in the upper realm doesn't know that the patriarch's master is Jinren Tonggu? How could the disciples of the Tianhua Dao sect not know? How could they not recognize the words ancient carved on the clothes? Perhaps this Dao-level sect doesn't take our sect of all times seriously," Jun Changshao said. Yi Xingchen said, "It's common for disciples of the sect to have conflicts with other factions when they go out. Why did the 4 elders of the truth-seeking realm come out as soon as they released the distress signal?" "Indeed," Jun Changshao said, "it's a little strange." According to his understanding, the forbidden area where Lu Baiwan and the others went to do the mission was extremely far away from the Tianhua Dao sect. Even if they came to help immediately, it would take at least an hour. Or rather, Yi Xingchen said, do the disciples of this sect have elders of the truth-seeking realm protecting them in the dark at all times when they go out to train? Impossible, Jun Changshao denied, unless they have nothing better to do. In the past, he had sent Gu Zhaoxi to protect the disciples of the sect when they were on missions, but it was only during special times. Later on, he chose to let him go. A Dao sect that was based in the upper realm must have tens of thousands of disciples. Were there enough elders to protect them 24 hours a day? Don't say it. Jun Changshao clasped his hands together and said, "It's really strange." Gosheng did not believe that there was nothing fishy about sending 4 elders of the truth-seeking realm over when the disciples had a conflict. "Ask Lu Baiwan to come over." Yes. Not long after, Lu Baiwan walked in. As an outer sect disciple, although he often saw the patriarch on the main peak, he could not remain calm now that he was in close contact with him. "Tell me about the conflict with the Tianhua Dao sect." Yes. Lu Baiwan hurriedly began to narrate. "I entered the forbidden area with a few fellow disciples and found a large number of earth-responding stones. We had just put them into our space rings when the people of the Tianhua Dao sect jumped out and said that they found it first and asked us to return it quickly. Then we started fighting. That's it. That's it." Chapter 1646. After disciple Lu Baiwan explained what had happened, Jun Changshao fell into deep thought. In the past few years, he had also wreaked havoc in many forbidden areas, and knew that there was an unwritten rule in the upper realm. Whoever went in and obtained good things would belong to them. How could the Dao sect disciples not know? Moreover, the Earth Response Stone was not something valuable. They argued with the sect of all times over such a trivial matter, and even attacked in the end. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed like patriarch. Yi Xingchen frowned and said, "In my opinion, they are deliberately looking for trouble with the sect of all times." After this guy occupied the demon ancestor's body, he felt that his intelligence had obviously increased. "My master is Jinren Tonggu. It's impossible that the Tianhua Dao sect doesn't know. They are deliberately looking for trouble in the forbidden area. I'm afraid that someone is supporting them from behind," Jun Changshao guessed. Previously, many forces had come when the Dao stone mine appeared, and among them, there were Tao-level forces. After he defeated the Ling Tian immortal sect elder, they all left obediently. Unless the Tianhua Dao sect was kicked in the head by a donkey, why would they take the initiative to look for trouble? "Patriarch." Li Luochio walked in and said, "I've already investigated clearly." "Speak." The Tianhua Dao sect was established 50,000 years ago. After rising to Tao level, they climbed up the big tree known as the Ling Tian immortal sect, and jumped to Tao level in a short 10,000 years. Oh, Jun Changshao was interested. Li Luochio continued. The Tianhua Dao sect will send outstanding disciples to the Ling Tian immortal sect to cultivate every 10 years. The two seem to be allies on the surface, but many people know that they are actually superior and subordinate. Lackey, you can think of it that way. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and tapped his right hand on the table. A smile gradually appeared on his face. The truth seems to have surfaced. Yi Xingchen said, "The Tianhua Dao sect dares not to fear the sect of all times because they have the Ling Tian immortal sect behind them." No, Jun Changshao rested his chin on the back of his hand and said, "The 10 major immortal sects are sealing the ancestral lands of the 2 clans, so that they can act at any time. But if there is no reason, how can they explain it to the world?" Understood. Yi Xingchen came to a realization. The Tianhua Dao sect was ordered to target the sect of all times, so that the 10 great immortal sects would have a chance to strike. Not bad. Humph. Yi Xingchen said coldly. Only trash would play tricks. Because he had once been hurt by Empress Ling Yao, what he hated the most was playing dirty tricks. Patriarch. Li Qingyang transmitted a message. The patriarch of the Tianhua Dao sect is here to visit. So fast. Jun Changshao stroked his chin, squinted his eyes, and said with a smile, "I'd like to see how you're going to put on this show." Hoo hoo. Hoo hoo hoo. In the sky, the 10 upper echelons of the Tianhua Dao sect, led by Lin Shangyi, stood proudly, releasing an extremely unfriendly aura. They were not here to ransom people, but to incite conflict. However, when they saw the sect of all times' door open and Elder Huang, and the other 3 tied up, and carried out by the disciples of the sect of all times, their violent aura weakened significantly. A lower truth-seeking realm cultivator was considered a pillar of a Dao sect. If anything happened to them, they would definitely not be able to afford it. Swish! Jun Changshao flew out and floated outside the mountain gate. He cupped his hands at Lin Shangyi politely and said, "You have an imposing appearance and extraordinary might. You must be the patriarch of the Tianhua Dao sect, right?" "That's right." Lin Shangyi's tone was indifferent. Jun Changshao said, "I won't waste any more words. Please pay 1 billion mystic stones to ransom the 4 elders of your sect." If it was a profound sect or a true sect, the price might be lower, but since it was a Dao sect that was second only to the immortal sect, they would definitely ask for an exorbitant price. Go Sheng could not take the initiative to extort innocent people, but if there was a conflict between them, he would definitely not be polite. Just like the Demon Emperor's gate in the lower realm, he would extort money again and again. Besides, they were the ones who started the trouble first, so they were even more righteous. Jun Changshao. Lin Shangyi reprimanded with a cold gaze. "The disciples of our sects only had a small conflict. Isn't it too much to ask for 1 billion mystic stones to kidnap 4 elders of my sect?" Jun Changshao was just guessing just now. Now that he saw the other party announcing the seizure of power, he was certain that the other party was deliberately looking for trouble. He probably wanted to blow up the matter and make it known to the world, so that the immortal sect would have a reason to appear. "Fine. I'll cooperate with you. It's not too much." Jun Changshao looked very annoying. "You." Lin Shangyi suppressed his anger and softened his tone. "If my sect was in the wrong first, we will naturally apologize. So Jun Patriarch, please release the 4 elders." Acting couldn't be too much, otherwise it would be easy to reveal flaws. "Big brother, even if Go Sheng's IQ was low, he could tell that your disciples were looking for trouble and instantly sent elders to rescue them. If there was a word to describe it, this was definitely a pig teammate. I can release them," Jun Changshao said. "You have to pay the ransom first." He was not afraid of others acting awkwardly, but he was afraid of others cooperating. Go Sheng guessed their intentions and naturally hoped to blow up the matter, because he also lacked a reason to act. To put it bluntly, the 10 great immortal sects wanted to mess with Jun Changshao. But how could Jun Changshao not want to mess with the 10 great immortal sects? Both sides hit it off. Come, everyone can act with all your might. Of course, Jun Changshao didn't even need to deliberately act, because he was very familiar with extortion, and was completely acting as himself. "Jun Patriarch," Lin Shangyi said coldly, "your master is a respected figure in the upper realm, but as his disciple, you're doing things like extortion and blackmail. Aren't you afraid of embarrassing Senior Tonggu?" "Sorry," Jun Changshao said. "Master has already jumped out of the 3 realms, and is no longer part of the 5 elements. He has long become indifferent to face." Lin Shangyi didn't know how to respond to this. "My patience is limited." Jun Changshao landed in front of the mountain gate, and put a hand on Elder Huang's shoulder. You'd better cooperate otherwise. Crack. The crisp sound of bones shattering rang out. Elder Huang's expression froze. He obviously didn't expect this guy to suddenly attack him. Doesn't it hurt? Elder Huang screamed in pain. Jun Changxiao. Seeing this, Lin Shangyi was furious. Jun Changxiao walked to the other side of Elder Huang and put it on his shoulder. I don't care who's right or wrong. Anyone who dares to bully the disciples of the sect of all times must pay the price. Crack. Both of his shoulder bones were crushed. Elder Huang's face was not only hideous, but his arms also naturally drooped down. The other 4 companions tied to the side were sweating profusely on their foreheads and backs. Don't worry. Jun Changxiao walked in front of one of them and smiled. As long as your sect's patriarch doesn't pay, it'll be your turn soon. This smile. It was like a demon. The 4 elders were so shocked that their minds trembled. They looked up at Lin Shangyi with difficulty, as if begging. Patriarch, hurry up and pay. I'm afraid we won't be able to take it. The main reason was that their cultivation was temporarily sealed, so they were no different from ordinary people in terms of resisting pain. Puchi. Suddenly, a dagger stabbed into the chest of one of Elder Huang's companions. Sizzle. The dagger was quickly pulled out and blood splattered. Jun Changxiao shook the blood-stained dagger and looked at the furious Lin Shangyi. He grinned and said, If you don't pay, the next stab will stab your heart. Chapter 1647. Tianhua Dao's sect wanted to blow things up. Jun Changxiao wanted to earn some money and cooperate with them, so he could only start torturing the 4 elders. Of course, this was still considered light. If he really wanted to be ruthless, he would directly throw them into Tianyuan Prison Pagoda and guarantee that the 4 of them would have a good new year there. Lin Shangyi was both happy and afraid now. He was happy that the patriarch of the sect of all times was so strong that he could stimulate the conflict. What he was afraid of was that he might accidentally kill the elder. In terms of value alone, 4 truth-seeking realm cultivators were far more than 1 billion mystic stones. After all, even if he had martial arts resources, he might not be able to pile up one. Seeing his hesitation, Jun Changxiao raised his dagger and stabbed again without hesitation. This time he would definitely die. Jun Patriarch. Lin Shangyi finally could not hold it in and hurriedly shouted, Let's talk nicely. The sharp dagger stopped when it was only 1 centimeter away from the elder's chest. The latter's widened eyes immediately recovered, and then he panted rapidly, sweat pouring down his forehead. Death. He had never been so close. Jun Changxiao turned around and smiled. I'll say it. 1 billion mystic stones, not one less. In this aspect, Gosheng rarely compromised. Lin Shangyi's expression turned uglier. The order given by the Lingtian immortal sect was not to hand over the ransom. Now that the other party was forcing them, they would definitely be killed if they did not hand it over. Jun Changxiao. At this moment, an elder of Tianhua Dao sect could not take it anymore and roared. Aren't you afraid that we'll report you to the World Hall for such shameless blackmail? Right. He was only worried about the elders and forgot that he had backing. World Hall. Jun Changxiao said disapprovingly, They're not even a fart in my eyes. These words were obviously to find an opportunity for Tianhua Dao sect to lead the conflict to the World Hall, and then the World Hall to the 10 immortal sects. Lin Shangyi indeed followed into the ditch. He sneered. The World Hall was created by the 10 immortal sects. Jun Patriarch doesn't even care about the immortal sects? The immortal sect is nothing. When Jun Changxiao said these words, it gave people a feeling that he was pouting. It could be said that his acting skills were textbook. Not only did Lin Shangyi believe it, but he was also secretly delighted. Good. I'll go find the 10 great immortal sects and let them be the judge. After working hard for half a day, he finally brought the immortal sects in. The mission could be considered to be half completed. Jun Changxiao raised his blood-stained dagger and patted the face of the elder beside him. He said, I don't care if you seek justice from the immortal sect or the divine sect. You must hand over the 1 billion profound stones. Otherwise, take the corpse with you when you go. Shua. Shua. Xiao Jun's flying knife began to tremble. Zzz. The magnificent Sky Dao Sect elder, who was restrained, could not dodge. The tendons in his arms and legs were all torn, and fresh blood gushed out like a fountain. Ah! Screams that sounded like pigs being slaughtered resounded throughout the timeless immortal mountain. Jun Changshao. Lin Shangyi roared angrily. In order to make him realize how cruel he was, Jun Changshao grabbed the elder's hair with one hand and placed the sharp dagger against his neck. He said with a cold gaze, "I'll give you a count of 3 to consider. Otherwise, you can collect their corpses." Murderous intent filled the air. At this moment, if there were onlookers around, they would definitely realize that the Sect of all times Patriarch definitely had murderous intent. Sect. Patriarch. That elder's face was sinister as he said in a hoarse voice, "Today, although I'm going to die, I'm still an elder of the magnificent Sky Dao Sect. I'll grant you your wish." Jun Changshao's fingers moved, and the dagger moved away from his neck. As it spun, it pierced into his chest. Hot blood splattered on his face, adding a bit of cruelty to it. The elder's pupils constricted. Before his thoughts disappeared, he thought, "I just said something nice. Why did he really stab me?" Elder Song. Lin Shangyi and the others roared angrily. Swoosh. Jun Changshao pulled out the dagger. Ignoring the other party's head, he continued to stab another elder. His method was so cold that it was obvious he wanted to kill him in one blow. However, just as it was about to land, Lin Shangyi finally gave up his defense and said, I'll give. One elder had already died. He could not allow a second one to die. Furthermore, the one who was about to be killed was the brother of his favorite concubine. If anything happened to him, he would cry and throw a tantrum at home every day. If Elder Song, who still had some warmth left, knew that the patriarch's compromise originated from his brother-in-law, he would definitely be annoyed at himself for upholding righteousness. I fucking courted death, and in the end I really died. Patriarch Lin. Jun Changshao said indifferently, "Give me 1 billion mystic stones. You can take them away. You killed one of them. Why do you still want 1 billion? This is a small business. No bargaining." Lin Shangyi almost couldn't help but vomit blood. However, since he had already compromised, he definitely could not let the 3 elders suffer any more harm. Therefore, he suppressed his heartache and said, "All right, 1 billion it is. These 2 days." Jun Changshao counted with his fingers and said, "The 4 elders have food and drink in my sect. I'll give you 4,600 mystic stones as food expenses." It was truly too deranged to haggle over every ounce to such an extent. "All right." Lin Shangyi gritted his teeth and said, "I'll give." He was willing to pay 1 billion, so he definitely wouldn't care about 4,600. "Pay first, then let them go," Jun Changshao said. "This is the old rule of the sect of all times." Old rule? It seemed that this guy had extorted a lot. No wonder he was so professional. Lin Shangyi obediently paid the 1 billion mystic stones and redeemed the 3 elders and a corpse. Before he left, he glared fiercely at Jun Changshao. Wah! On the way back, Elder Song, who had been stabbed in the chest, suddenly vomited blood and went from a dead state to a near-death state. "Patriarch!" Third elder exclaimed. "Elder Song is still alive." Lin Shangyi hurried over and clasped the other party's wrist. He found a pulse and said in shock, "How is this possible?" After Jun Changshao stabbed the dagger into his chest, he caught a glimpse of Elder Song's lifeless aura. Now that he suddenly came back to life, it was really strange. Sect of all times. Jun Changshao sat in the study. Not only was he playing with the spatial ring that contained the mystic stones, but he was also playing with the medicine bottle with the netherworld pill written on it. He thought to himself, how long can this thing last in the upper realm? It turned out that he was just acting and did not kill Elder Song. "The host is merciful," the system said. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "The magnificent Sky Dao sect was merely instructed by the 10 major immortal sects to cause trouble. I gave them a chance to turn over a new leaf. If they dare to do it again." At this point, he paused for a moment and said with a cold gaze, "This is not something that can be resolved with money." Chapter 1648. Boom! Boom! In the training room, Xiao Ziji, who was fully equipped, faced Su Xiaoma and Li Fei's punches and kicks. He was as still as a rock. The armor he was wearing was developed by Fan Yezi from a book he obtained from the Moang region. As the material was made from heavenly spirit quenching, or it could be called a third-generation mecha. Huff huff. After a while, Su Xiaoma and Li Fei were panting. They bent over and stopped. One of them had a sore hand, while the other had a sore foot. The entire process felt like they were hitting metal lumps. Xiao Ziji said excitedly, "Patriarch, this armor is not bad." Jun Changshao, who was sitting at the side, took a sip of tea and said, "After all, it's made from heavenly spirit quenching Oregon. How can it not be fragrant?" After testing, the third-generation mecha had extremely strong defense. The craftsmanship was also high. Although it looked cumbersome, it was actually light and convenient. It was a must-have for traveling and robbing. Where could he buy such a good item? Look for Go Sheng at the ancient celestial mountain. Sorry, not for sale. Hallmaster Fan. Jun Changshao came to the forging hall and said, "You must speed up the production of the third-generation mecha. Try to use up all the remaining heavenly spirit quenching, or in half a month." Okay. In the lower domain, Fan Yezi was basically in a semi-retired state. After coming to the upper domain, and being given a lot of work, he regained his lost youth, and the drive of his youth. Jun Changshao went to the array formation hall again, and told them to speed up the production of mechas. In the workshops of the two peaks, the disciples worked hard. The words "strive for perfection," "forge quality" shone brightly on the wall. Kaka. Kaka. Batches of Diablo and third-generation mechas were produced one after another. The elite members of the War Cavalry Hall used the new mechas. The inner sect disciples put on the new mechas. The core strength of the sect of all times grew stronger day by day. Everything is ready. Jun Changshao sat in the study room and interlocked his fingers. He said, "We only lack one east wind." This east wind was the magnificent heaven sect. Ling Tian celestial sect. Lin Haoyan stood in the study, the anger in his eyes growing. Lin Shangyi was like a child who had made a mistake. He stood at the side with his head lowered and didn't say a word. Boom. Suddenly, Lin Haoyan smashed the table and roared, "So you still paid the ransom?" Jun Changshao is very cruel. If we don't pay up, the 4 elders of our humble sect will be killed by him. Although Lin Shangyi looked aggrieved, he was prepared to be scolded after he chose to compromise. The 4 lower truth-seeking realm cultivators have surrendered. Trash good for nothing. Lin Shangyi's head was sprayed with saliva, but he could only lower his head and howl in his heart. This realm is nothing to your immortal sect, but it's a treasure to our Dao sect. You don't care, but I do. Patriarch Lin, don't be angry. The patriarch of the hidden immortal sect, who was sitting next to him, stroked his goatee and smiled. As the guardians of the upper realm, we the 10 great immortal sects cannot allow this kind of extortion and blackmail to spread, so he gave a you-know-what-I-mean look. That's right. Lin Haoyan calmed down and sneered. Just because of a small conflict between disciples, they detained 4 elders and extorted 1 billion Xian stones. This kind of evil practice must be stopped. Patriarch Lin, did you just say that an elder of your sect was assassinated by Jun Changshao? That's right. Is he alive or dead? He's still alive. Announce his death to the public, and carry the body to the sect of all times. Huh. Lin Shangyi was dumbfounded, but he soon understood what it meant, and his expression immediately became pained. Patriarch Lin. Lin Haoyan patted his shoulder and said in a low voice, "Our Heaven Ascension Immortal Sect will compensate your sect for any losses after this matter is over." Lin Shangyi's eyes lit up when he heard this. Understood, understood. East Sea. The 10 great immortal sects were still busy setting up the seal. Although the Stone Statue clan and the Dragon clan had already known, they pretended not to notice because Jun Changshao had warned them in advance. Elder. It'll be completed in 3 days. The formation master in charge of the seal gave an accurate time. When the news reached the Heaven Ascension Immortal Sect, Lin Haoyan gently raised his wine cup and said with a fake smile, "Jun Changshao, you and your sect of all times can only exist for 3 days. Everyone, let's gather our men. All right. The leaders of the other 9 sects contacted their own sects one after another. From the high-ranking elders to the elite disciples. All of them were ready. In the extreme grade cave abode, Jimren Tonggu pushed the chessboard away in frustration and said, "Old friend, I have an ominous feeling again." Masato Katana was speechless. Every time he was about to lose, an ominous feeling would come. It was too much of a coincidence. Boom. Suddenly, there was a clap of thunder outside. The two of them stood up and walked out of the cave abode. They saw dark clouds in the distance, and a murderous aura blew with the wind. "Looks like," Masato Katano said solemnly, "the weather is going to change again." "Sigh." Jimren Tonggu sighed and said, "I hope it's not related to my disciple this time. Other than the 2 invasions of the star spirit world. As long as he was upset, it would definitely have something to do with Jun Changshao." Of course, Go Sheng also blamed himself. Therefore, he did not inform Jimren Tonggu to help when the 10 great immortal sects targeted the sect of all times. "Master." Sitting in the main hall under the dark clouds, Jun Changshao raised a jar of drunken dreams and said, "I already have the strength to face everything. I won't cause you any more trouble." 3 days were very short. It was just a short conversation. Buzz. Buzz. In the East Sea, the 2 sealing formations were finally built. Phew. The person in charge heaved a sigh of relief. During this period of time, he had been on tenterhooks, afraid that the dragon race and the stone statue race would come out and cause trouble. Fortunately, they were not discovered, and everything went very smoothly. Thank the heavens, thank the earth. Actually, he should thank Go Sheng more because he was the one who stopped the 2 races. Ling Tian Immortal Sect. Lin Haoyan, who was anxiously waiting, immediately flew up and shouted, "Let's go!" Yes. Whoosh. 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 In an instant, nearly 10,000 upper echelons and elite disciples turned into streams of light and flew out of the sect, interweaving in the sky like a rainbow. What's going on? Seeing this, the passers-by were stunned. The 10 great immortal sects were extraordinary existences in the upper realm. It was already good enough to see a few people, but now so many of them flew out. Could it be that they were going to fight? Similar situations were also playing out in the other 9 sections. Under the lead of the patriarch, the upper echelons and elites flew towards the ancient immortal mountain as quickly as possible. How many? 10,000 in one sect, 100,000 in 10 sects. This number was exactly the same as the sect of all times, but they were all elites, so their combat strength was very strong. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Vast waves of air spread out, deeply shocking the cultivators of the upper realm. Something big has happened. This scene is very similar to the scene recorded in the ancient books, when the various immortal sects joined forces to fight against the demonic race 100,000 years ago. The 10 great immortal sects sent out their elites together, instantly shocking the entire upper realm, causing all the cultivators to wonder who was going to be unlucky? Sect of all times. They're heading towards the sect of all times. Someone guessed the general direction of the Lingtian immortal sect's powerhouses. After all, in terms of enmity, Jun Changshao had previously snatched a Dao stone mine from them. As expected, this day still came. Chapter 1649. In the sect of all times, Jun Changshao stood in front of the bronze mirror, tidying his collar and combing his bangs. He had already received news from the East Sea that the 2 clans had been sealed. The 10 immortal sects would probably come soon. Thud. He walked out with a valiant posture. The black and white Rakshasa, Old Ding, and the other upper echelons lined up neatly outside the main hall. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other core disciples stood proudly in the martial arts arena, their eyes flashing with fighting spirit. The 10 immortal sects would come sooner or later, and they had long been prepared for battle. It's been nearly 10 years since I ascended to the upper realm. Jun Changshao said loudly. It's time to tell everyone that those who offend the sect of all times will be killed. Those who offend the sect of all times will be killed. The loud shouts of the sect resounded through the sky. Swish, swish. On the drill ground below the war cavalry peak, Dozens of mountain gates slowly opened. Brand new mechas took off from the runway and then hovered in the sky above the sect. The Million Devil Army hovered outside the Immortal Mountain, forming 3 layers of defense. At this moment, the sect of all times was under martial law. Not even a strand of hair could float in, let alone a fly. Jun Changshao was too lazy to activate the sect's protective array because he needed such a tool to protect himself. Now that the upper echelon disciples had broken through to the truth-seeking realm, he had the confidence to face everything. A murderous aura enveloped the entire sect, indicating that a bloody battle was about to begin. Swish! Swish! At this moment, hundreds of Tianhua Dao sect powerhouses flew over, and a few of them were carrying coffins. Jun Changshao released his spiritual senses and found a corpse lying inside. He's dead? That's impossible. A few days ago, he stabbed him and did not injure his vitals. He only quietly consumed a yellow spring pill. He should have been alive long ago. How could he still die in the end? Understood. Jun Changshao suddenly laughed. The conflict had developed to an irreconcilable stage, and naturally, someone had to die. Therefore, this elder song had to die to give the immortal sects an opportunity. Jun Changshao. Lin Shangyi hovered outside the mountain and said angrily, "You killed my sect's elder. This grudge is absolutely irreconcilable." TSK, Jun Changshao said. In order to find an excuse for immortal sect, you sacrificed a truth-seeking elder. Your Tianhua Dao sect is truly magnanimous. Now that the seal of the East Sea had been set up, the 10 immortal sects should be on their way here. So he didn't plan to put on an act anymore. Furthermore, there was no point in acting with amateurs. Lin Shangyi's expression froze, and some pain flashed through his eyes. However, he quickly adjusted his state of mind and said in a deep voice, "I have invited the 10 great immortal sects. They will uphold justice for me." Oh. Jun Changshao leaped from the main hall to the outside of the mountain gate and sat down elegantly. He interlocked his fingers and placed them on his thighs, saying, "Bringing a coffin here so early in the morning is really a bit inauspicious. Whether it's auspicious or not doesn't mean anything to you because..." Lin Shangyi's tone gradually turned cold and severe. "A life for a life." "That's right," Jun Changshao said. Lin Shangyi's gaze instantly froze because the voice did not come from the mountain gate, but from beside his ear. Hence, he tried his best to turn his head and saw that fellow appearing in front of him at some point in time. He said in a gloomy voice, "A life for a life." With that, he raised his hand. Lin Shangyi displayed the reaction that a patriarch of the Dao sect should have. He dodged at an extremely fast speed and with an extremely pathetic movement technique. However, when he stabilized his body and looked again, he saw that the other party was only scratching his head and did not attack. His face instantly turned red from anger. No, he was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm after all. Although he was not as good as the experts of the immortal sect, he shouldn't have let that guy get close to him so easily without noticing. Right? Boom! While he was thinking, a powerful fist landed on his right face. In slow motion, Lin Shangyi's eyes widened and his mouth was crooked as he flew out gorgeously. Then, he fell outside the Aeon Immortal Mountain like a cannonball, stirring up clouds of dust. "Patriarch!" The upper echelons of the Tianhua Dao sect exclaimed, and looked at Jun Changshao in horror. "When did this guy attack? They didn't see it at all. You even killed your own people. What right do you have to be the master of a sect?" Swish! Jun Changshao flew down and merged with the dust in the sky. Boom! 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 In an instant, the sound of violent punches could be heard. Coupled with the shaking of the earth, it presented an excellent visual experience. At the same time, it also deeply shocked the upper echelons of the Tianhua Dao sect. A moment later, the explosion ended, and the dust fell to the ground. Jun Changshao stood in front of the huge pit. At the bottom, Lin Shangyi's face was bruised and swollen. He was foaming at the mouth, and even his teeth had been knocked out. A peak truth-seeking realm cultivator was unable to resist at all. "Husband." Rose of Flowers was shocked. So strong. Previously, he had asked him when he would break through. Today, he had easily trampled on a peak truth-seeking realm cultivator in front of the entire sect. It was too exaggerated. He didn't want to explain. What's going on? Is there a fight in the sect of all times? Let's go and take a look. The itinerant cultivators outside the timeless immortal mountain rushed over after hearing the commotion. When they saw the soldiers and mechas gathering in the sky above the sect of all times, they realized that something big was going to happen. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, a majestic aura swarmed over from afar. The itinerant cultivators hurriedly turned around, and then their eyes widened. In their field of vision, the experts of the Ling Tian Immortal Sect flew over at top speed. Although there were only 100,000 of them, they were all elites. The weakest of them was at least rank 7 or rank 8, and there were countless reincarnation core cultivators. Exterminate the dogs. They were serious. The experts of the 10 major immortal sects who flew over did not hold back at all. The power that erupted was visible to the naked eye, as if it had turned into a surging wave that pressed down from the sky. The itinerant cultivators were so scared that their legs trembled. With this kind of formation and aura, if it was targeted at them, they would probably be annihilated instantly. Fortunately, the 10 major immortal sects did not come here to kill ordinary people. Their gazes were fixed on the sect of all times, and their flying speed was much faster than before. The army was pressing down on them, and the killing intent was even stronger. However, facing such a vast aura, the sect of all times' expression did not change, even if MT Tai collapsed in front of them. They came quite quickly. Jun Changshao casually grabbed the half-dead Lin Shangyi and flew to the front of the sect gate. He casually threw him on the ground and sat on a chair suavely. In the blink of an eye, the 10 major immortal sects patriarch led by Lin Haoyan flew to the sect gate. When they saw the Tian Hua Dao sect's patriarch being abused to the point where it was unbearable to look at, they were unable to restrain their anger. Jun Changshao, the hidden immortal sect's patriarch, shouted, "Kidnapping 4 Tian Hua Dao sect's elders and extorting 1 billion mystic stones. This is truly..." "Stop talking nonsense." Jun Changshao impatiently interrupted. "If I don't do this, how can I give the 10 major immortal sects an excuse to attack?" At this point, a fight was inevitable. He did not like to beat around the bush, so he directly laid his cards on the table. "Good," Lin Haoyan shouted loudly. "The sect of all times detained another sect's elders without permission. This is the first crime. Extorting 1 billion mystic stones from the Lin Patriarch is the second crime. Killing Elder Song is the third crime." Klang's sword light appeared and a head rolled. Jun Changshao stood up with his sword and stepped on Lin Shangyi's rolling head with one foot. He said coldly, "No one in this world can convict me, Jun Changshao. If there is, then kill them." The originally slightly silly aura instantly turned serious under the influence of the 6 words. "Kill. Kill." Inside the sect, the furious roars of the disciples shook the sky. Chapter 1650. Jun Changshao gave Lin Shangyi a chance and didn't kill the 4 elders. However, he didn't seem to realize Go Sheng's kindness and brought a coffin to cause trouble early in the morning. The most intolerable thing was, Elder Song clearly didn't kill him, but he still dared to deliberately frame him. Again, no more. Therefore, Jun Changshao drew his sword and killed him. His technique was nimble and decisive, not giving Lin Haoyan and the others any time to stop him. Lin Shangyi, who died with his eyes wide open, obviously didn't expect that Jun Changshao would kill him so brazenly, even though the people of the 10 major immortal sects were here. In order to obtain greater benefits, he killed Elder Song. Now he died tragically under Jun Changshao's sword. It could be considered as fulfilling the sentence he said when he first arrived. "A life for a life." Jun Changshao, the hidden immortal sect, said angrily, "You're lawless." Jun Changshao wiped the blood off the sword with a handkerchief and said indifferently, "You should have a reason to attack the sect of all times now, right?" "Yes, and it was very sufficient." Of course, Jun Changshao didn't kill Lin Shangyi to anger the 10 major immortal sects. He just couldn't stand this guy who even dared to kill his own people. Kill. Kill. The hundreds of powerhouses of the magnificent Heaven Dao sect finally came back to their senses. They unleashed their cultivation realms and drew their weapons, charging over with fierce eyes. The patriarch was killed. Any sect member with guts would not tolerate it. Clang! Jun Changshao inserted the sword under his feet, put his hands on the hilt, and said expressionlessly, "Kill them all." Swoosh! Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, the black and white rakshas flew out in a spiral. The majestic power of true spirit erupted, and instantly condensed into dense heaven-crossing palm prints. When he first met Jun Changshao, the two of them were only at the 6th transformation core realm. Now that they had entered the upper level of the truth-seeking realm, their speed of improvement was extremely fast. Boom! Boom! The palm prints continued to explode, causing the space to rapidly collapse. Although the Tianhua Dao sect had more than 500 people, and many of them were at the truth-seeking realm, they were only at the middle and lower level. They could only passively take a beating when facing the stronger upper level. Plop! Plop! One by one, the higher-ups fell outside the mountain gate. There was a palm print on their chests. Their auras were gone, and their souls had returned to the 9 heavens. The patriarch had given the order to kill all of them. Therefore, when the black and white Rakshasas attacked, they showed no mercy at all. They went straight for the kill. After losing a large number of their fellow disciples, the upper echelons of the Tianhua Dao sect finally calmed down from their anger. An elder turned around and begged for help. "Patriarch Lin, please uphold justice for our patriarch." Jun Changshao said indifferently, "There is no justice in this world where the strong prey on the weak, and no one can uphold justice. Zhou Hong, disciple is here. Annihilate all the invaders." Yes. Zhou Hong flew out of the sect and landed steadily at the mountain gate. Although he was wearing the Sect of All Times' disciple uniform, it had faded in many places because he had not changed it for a long time. His black hair was messy, and his eyes were filled with vicissitudes. He held a simple and unadorned sword in his hand, looking like a swordsman who had wandered the world. Why did they have to describe his appearance and expression? That was because this guy stood on the spot like a block of wood after he appeared. There was no way to break in at all. They could only rely on this word count to barely survive. Lin Haoyan and the others frowned. This guy who had just walked out did not release any martial arts aura. He looked like an ordinary person. No, this kid is definitely not simple. The intuition of a top expert made the immortal sect elders realize that this Sect of All Times disciple should be extremely dangerous. Huff. Zhou Hong took a deep breath. Perhaps it was because he had not fought in front of a camera for a long time. The moment his right hand touched the hilt of the sword, one could clearly see that his fingers were trembling slightly. The patriarch had given him a chance. He had to seize it. Clang! While thinking, he unsheathed his sword. Whoosh whoosh. A majestic sword chi emerged from his body. His entire person instantly became extremely sharp. The person was like the sword, and the sword was like the person. This was an extremely profound level of sword Dao. What a pure and flawless sword chi. Lin Haoyan frowned. This person should be a pure sword cultivator. There were very few pure sword cultivators in the upper realm. That was because many people could not bear the loneliness and chose to cultivate other things in the long years. Zhou Hong was different. Whether it was in the lower realm or the upper realm, he had always insisted on comprehending the sword. He had reached a state of intoxication. Even the most insignificant action of unsheathing his sword would be repeated countless times. He was born for the sword. He was a sword fanatic. As for why he did not give the camera time, it was because he had been unsheathing his sword in the courtyard every day. It was too boring. Go Sheng, who had cheated all the way, could not be compared to Zhou Hong, who cultivated steadily. No, he was not even fit to carry his shoes. Was the reader feeling comfortable? Retreat. The higher-ups of the magnificent Sky Sect smelled danger, and hurriedly ordered their disciples to retreat. It was too late. Just as they turned around, Zhou Hong took a step away. His body was half-bent, and his messy black hair fluttered without wind. He said, "Sword technique 8,000 fleeting graces." Swoosh! The sword chi shot out like a ray of light. Buzz! Buzz! Space instantly folded, revealing a strange scene. No. A strong aura of death rose in the hearts of the higher-ups of the magnificent Sky Sect. As they cried out in fear, the sword chi swept past them, and their bodies were directly split into two. Even the nearby space was left with eye-catching sword marks. Lin Shangyi came to cause trouble, and brought nearly 500 people. He was killed by Jun Changshao. Dozens of higher-ups were killed by the black and white Rakshasa. And the rest, whether it was the lower-level truth-seeking realm, or the core transformation realm, all died under Zhou Hong's 8,000 fleeting graces. They were all elites. Now that they died in front of the sect of all times, the magnificent Sky Sect could declare bankruptcy. How is this possible? Lin Haoyan did not care that the magnificent Sky Sect's elites were all wiped out. After all, they were just a dog raised by his family. What he cared about was that the sect of all time's disciples seemed to have only attacked once, but in fact, they had attacked thousands of times in an instant. 8,000 times. Jun Changshao was shocked. The system exclaimed, "This person's attainments in the Sword Dao have already surpassed the host's." That's right. Jun Changshao had to admit, his obsession with the Sword Dao can be said to be perverted. Go Sheng relied on the Sword Dao aptitude liquid to advance all the way up in the lower realm. On the other hand, after ascending to the upper realm, he did not have a suitable weapon, and almost abandoned his Sword Dao. This guy, Yi Xingchen said solemnly. Could it be that he has the strength of a middle-level truth-seeking realm? He and Zhou Hong had entered the sect not long after each other, and had long realized that he was different. However, he did not expect that after coming to the upper realm, he would break through to the truth-seeking realm with his own comprehension, and even display stronger combat strength than him. No, he would, said. It's already difficult to measure his realm, because true sword cultivators don't care if they're in the core transformation realm, or the truth-seeking realm. They only care if they can comprehend a higher Sword Dao. That's right. Martial Dao realm was superfluous to Zhou Hong. He had been comprehending the Sword Dao from the beginning to the end, so even if he cleared his realm now, as long as he had the sword intent in his heart, he could still kill 300 people instantly. Clang Zhou Hong sheathed his sword. Under his messy black hair, a face full of stories and vicissitudes was revealed. In terms of age, he was only a dozen years older than Jun Changshao. Chapter 1651. Zhou Hong killed hundreds of powerhouses with one strike, which deeply shocked Lin Haoyan and the rest. It would be difficult to find a second person in the entire upper realm who could comprehend the Sword Dao to the point where he could slash 8,000 times in an instant. If he continued to cultivate, his achievements would only be more terrifying. The more stunning Zhou Hong's performance was, the more the 10 major immortal sects sensed danger. After all, he was a disciple of the sect of all times. If they did not stop him in time, wouldn't he soar to the heavens when he was fully grown? Everyone. Lin Haoyan transmitted his voice. This sect cannot be left alive. When the star spirit world invaded earlier, they had seen the strength of many disciples. Now that a Sword Dao genius like Zhou Hong had appeared, they were even more worried than before. That's right. The patriarch of the hidden immortal sect said, "Since we are all here, we must destroy the sect of all times." Jun Changshao. Lin Haoyan said coldly, "You killed the patriarch of the Tianhua Dao sect in public. Your crime is extremely heinous. Today, according to the rules of the upper realm, we will remove your sect of all times." His voice resounded in the sky and entered the ears of the itinerant cultivators. It's over. The sect of all times is finished. When Lin Haoyan said this, numbers appeared on the signs of all the medium-sized cities in the upper realm. The content was, since the sect of all times ascended, they have repeatedly destroyed the forbidden grounds, detained the Tianhua Dao sect's elders, and extorted 1 billion magnetite. Their actions are extremely vile and infuriating. After discussion among the 10 major immortal sects, they have issued a removal order. Fuck. A removal order. Martial artists from various cities quickly gathered around. A removal order could be understood simply as removing a force or clan from the pugilistic world. Ever since the 10 major immortal sects came to power, it had only appeared once, and that was 100,000 years ago against the demonic territory. Now a sect that had just ascended was receiving the same treatment. No wonder so many immortal sect powerhouses flew over just now. They are going to wipe out the sect of all times. It's a rare sight. Let's go and watch the show. Watch what? The 10 great immortal sects have sent people. By the time we get there, the eternal sect will already be gone. Jun Changxiao's master is Jinren Tonggu. He definitely won't sit idly by and do nothing. Perhaps he's already clashed with the immortal sect. If we go over, we'll be able to see a battle between peak powerhouses. Let's go. In the end, there were still quite a few cultivators who went to the timeless immortal mountain with the mentality of watching a good show. There were quite a number of people, at least 1 million, in the extreme cave abode. Jinren Tonggu placed a black piece on the chessboard and raised his head with a smile. I won. AI. Masato Kitano shook his head and said, You're 1 step behind. According to the bet that you and I made a few thousand years ago, the loser must promise the winner one thing. Speak. Jinren Tonggu stood up and said with his back to him, Stay here. With that, he waved his hand and put on a brand new robe that was hanging on the clothes rack. An aura of death surged from his body. I can agree to anything, but this is the only thing I can't agree to. Masato Kitano also put on a robe and tied up his scattered hair. Because I said that no matter what happens in the future, I'll support you unconditionally. Why bother? Jinren Tonggu said bitterly. Don't talk nonsense. Masato Kitano walked out of the cave abode first and said, If you're late, your disciples' sect will probably be removed. No wonder the two of them felt like they were going to be separated by life and death. It turned out that they already knew that the 10 immortal sects had issued a removal order. Okay. Jinren Tonggu knew this old friend very well and said, You owe me one thing first. Bullshit. Masato Kitano roared. Your disciple is in trouble. I'll go and help. We don't owe each other anything. Okay. While the two of them were talking, the ethereal 7 sages and the others flew over. They did not have a master-disciple relationship with Jun Changxiao, but they had personally trained him for 2 years. Now that he was in trouble, they naturally did not hesitate to help. Disciple. Jinren Tonggu thought to himself, I was wrong. He had once said that he would rather die than die with his friends than die with him. Now that they had come to help him without caring about their lives, it showed what chivalry was. This was especially precious in a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Let's go. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With Jinren Tonggu as the representative, the itinerant cultivators turned into streams of light and flew towards the Aeon Immortal Mountain. They knew that they would fall out with the 10 immortal sects, but in order to place their hopes on the new generation, they did not mind losing their arms or even their lives. At this point in the plot, they became hot-blooded for no reason. This would probably make many readers who were used to the relaxed style of writing shout, Fuck, this is so awkward. Don't worry. The camera turned to the sect of all times, where the atmosphere was solemn. Jun Changxiao sat in front of the mountain gate, one hand skillfully scratching his foot. The disciples were speechless. The immortal sect's 100,000 people were waiting outside the sect, but the patriarch was still leisurely scratching his foot. Moreover, he even put his finger in front of his nose and sniffed it. A relaxed expression appeared on his face. Ugh! Su Xiaoma could not take it anymore and vomited. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were trying their best to focus their attention on the immortal sect. Go Sheng's indecent behavior made the nearby rows of flowers think to herself, Husband's calm appearance is so charming. Remove them? Jun Changxiao put down his foot and said, Such arrogance. Lin Haoyan did not intend to waste words with him. He raised his hand and said coldly, Disciples, listen to my order. Quickly eliminate the sect of all times. Yes. Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, close to 100,000 martial artists with cultivation not weaker than rank 7 or 8 erupted with their full strength. Their roars and auras could be said to be world-shaking. It was quite ironic. When Star Spirit World's first fleet invaded, although they participated in the battle, their numbers were far less than the sect of all times. They were probably thinking of sending the other forces and lone cultivators to their deaths, thus reducing their losses as much as possible. If a battle is decided by the loudest voice, my sect of all times would be invincible. Jun Changshao lazily placed his hand on the chair and said, "Babies, let them hear you." Swoosh, swoosh. 100,000 disciples uniformly took out loudspeakers from their spatial rings and shouted, "Those who offend the sect of all times will be killed. Those who offend the sect of all times will be killed." Buzz, the sky shook, it was deafening. If a battle was decided by the loudest voice, the sect of all times would undoubtedly win. Swoosh, swoosh. At this time, the 10 great immortal sects charged over. At the front were several hundred higher-ups. Their strength ranged from low, middle, and upper truth-seeking realm. The 10 immortal sects could casually send out a few dozen experts, but the combined battle strength was immense, not to mention the tens of thousands of peak transformation core experts. Although Jun Changshao had 1,000,000 devil army, most of them were at rank 1. If the two sides really fought, it would be hard to say who would emerge victorious. Whoosh whoosh. The people of the 10 great immortal sects came crashing over like monstrous waves. Their auras, which were condensed under their full cultivation, deeply shook the sky and the earth. Too terrifying. The lone cultivators who were hiding far away saw the dazzling light on myriad ancient immortal mountain. Their minds trembled. Let's see who dares to act rashly. Suddenly, an old and furious voice resounded, forming a sound wave that spread out crazily, causing everyone's blood and chi to roil. The 10 great immortal sects' army stopped abruptly. Jinren Tonggu brought his friends and family to the entrance of the sect of all times, saying coldly, "Those who touch my disciple and the sect will not rest until they die." "Master!" Jun Changshao turned his head and handed over some eye drops. When he turned back, his face was already covered in tears. Chapter 1652. Jinren Tonggu brought his group of friends and family over. He stood in front of the mountain gate, his back view looking extremely majestic. Jun Changshao was greatly touched. He must have saved the entire universe in his previous life, to have met such a good master in this life. Wait a minute. Could it be that this was the reason why he transmigrated to another world and activated the system? You're thinking too much. The system broke the ice in time. With the host's shameless personality, it's already fortunate that he didn't harm the universe in his previous life. If not for the fact that they were facing a powerful enemy, Jun Changshao would definitely strangle him. Jinren Tonggu, Lin Haoyan said with a cold face. Jun Changshao killed the patriarch of the Tianhua sect and committed an unforgivable crime. As his master, are you going to protect him? He had already expected this situation, but he did not take it to heart. As long as he sealed the dragon race and the stone statue race, a group of itinerant cultivators would not be a threat. Indeed, in terms of strength, the patriarch of the 10 immortal sects was stronger than Jinren Tonggu and the rest. If they really fought, the outcome would be decided very quickly. You said it yourself, Jinren Tonggu said. Since I'm the master, how can I watch my disciple be bullied? Since he had brought people here today, he had to protect Jun Changshao no matter what. Humph. The patriarch of Hidden Immortal said coldly. Those who protect the sect of all times will be considered accomplices. You still have the face to say that after losing to me? Masato Kitano said calmly. This sentence immediately angered the patriarch of Hidden Immortal sect. 10,000 years ago, he had lost to Masato Kitano. At that time, he had just entered the core transformation realm and had not succeeded the position of patriarch. Come, the patriarch of Hidden Immortal sect said in a low voice. Let's fight again. After becoming the next successor of the sect, he had obtained many resources, and his strength and realm were no longer the same as before. Naturally, he wanted to avenge his defeat. Okay, Masato Kitano agreed. Jinren Tonggu asked worriedly. Are you confident? No. Masato Kitano knew that the strength of the patriarch of the Hidden Immortal sect had increased rapidly. Although he had also broken through to the peak of the truth-seeking realm, there was definitely a gap between him and the patriarch who had been cultivated by the sect. Senior Qi Yi, Jun Changshao said, "This is a grudge between the Sect of all times and the 10 great immortal sects. Please watch from the side." Masato Kitano's expression was wonderful. Did he not realize what was going on in his sect? He actually wanted him to watch the battle. "Smelly brat." Jinren Tongu scolded. "Don't show off." Go Sheng smiled and flew out of the mountain gate. He hovered in midair and looked at the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect with an arrogant attitude. He said lightly, "I will fight with you." "You?" The patriarch of the hidden immortal sect sneered. "Jun Changshao," Lin Haoyan said lightly, "without the support of the Stone Statue clan and the Dragon clan, what qualifications do you have to challenge the 10 great immortal sects?" The other patriarch also looked disdainful. In their opinion, sealing off the ancestral lands of the two clans was equivalent to cutting off Jun Changshao's wings. But then again, sending 100,000 elites to kill their way to the sect seemed to be giving too much face to dog leftover. The main purpose was to eliminate the root of the problem. The sect of all times had to be destroyed. The upper echelons and disciples could not be spared. In order to ensure the absolute rule of the 10 great immortal sects in the upper realm, as long as there was a threat, they would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. One could imagine how angry the demon ancestor was when he was jointly destroyed back then. No wonder he had the idea of destroying the world, and was even willing to become an immortal. Jun Changshao said in a mocking tone, "You don't dare to accept the challenge?" "Brat," the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect said coldly, "are you deliberately provoking me?" Swoosh. Jun Changshao took out a loudspeaker and said, "Today, I, as the patriarch of the sect of all times, challenge the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect." But he avoided the topic. He's obviously afraid. The rogue cultivators in the distance were speechless. "Brother, we can hear you even if you don't speak so loudly." The patriarch of the hidden immortal sect was instantly furious. His gaze was cold as he said, "Since you're so overconfident, I'll fight you." He agreed. "I've sinned," Jun Changshao said. "Make a cup of hot tea." After saying that, he flew out of the Aeon Immortal Mountain and hovered above a mountain field. He said lightly, "Hurry up and come out. I'm still waiting to go back and drink tea." Jinren Tongu and Masato Kitano's mouths twitched. They finally understood why Jun Changshao asked his disciples to make tea. It turned out that he wanted to finish the battle quickly, so that he could drink it while it was hot. No, he's too arrogant. Even his own people could not stand it anymore, let alone the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect. At this moment, his eyes were flashing with extreme anger. He wanted to tear Jun Changshao apart with his eyes. "Patriarch Jin," Lin Haoyan said telepathically, "no need to show mercy. Kill if you can." At first, he thought that Jun Changshao might hide in the sect and not come out. If he wanted to destroy him, he would have to use absolute power. That was why he sent 100,000 people. He did not expect that Jun Changshao would dare to take the initiative to challenge the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect. Opportunity. Excellent opportunity. As the saying goes, to catch bandits, catch the ringleader first. After destroying Jun Changshao, wouldn't the sect of all times be a piece of meat on the chopping block? Okay. An undetectable killing intent rose in the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect's angry eyes. Jinren Tongu caught it, and hurriedly sent a telepathic message to Jun Changshao. "Come back quickly. Don't be rash." The patriarch of the 10 major immortal sects was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. Even he himself might not be able to win, let alone his disciple. "Master." Jun Changshao hovered above the mountains and said with a solemn expression, "Ever since we established a master-disciple relationship, I've caused you a lot of trouble. I'm ashamed." "Sigh." Jinren Tongu sighed. "I'm used to it. This time, since the 10 major immortal sects have come to target the sect of all times, please watch the battle from afar. Leave the rest to me," Jun Changshao said. Jinren Tongu fell silent. He was definitely worried about letting Jun Changshao face the 10 major immortal sects alone. However, looking at his super serious back, he was a little expectant that his disciple could compete with the strongest forces in the upper realm. "Okay," Jinren Tongu said. "I'll watch the battle." Old friend. Let's retreat first. Turning around, he found that Masato Kitano, the 7 sages of the ethereal sect, and the others were already hovering far away from the ancient immortal mountain. They almost took out a watermelon and said, "This watermelon is so sweet." Fuck. You guys ran away too quickly. Junren Tonggu and his friends and family chose not to participate in the matter between the sect of all times and the 10 major immortal sects. They hung outside the mountain gate as bystanders. Of course, it was also because of their trust in Jun Changshao. After 2 years of contact, they did not think that this kid was a fool, since he did not plan to let them participate and dared to fight the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect alone. He should be confident or have some trump card. Old friend, your disciple is not simple. Maybe he will create a miracle. I hope so. Come on. Jun Changshao raised his hand and made a provocative gesture. Let's get this over with. The patriarch of the hidden immortal sect suppressed his anger and flew over. His extraordinary long robe fluttered without wind. His eyes were filled with undisguised killing intent. He said, "Arrogance comes with a price." Whoosh! Suddenly, Jun Changshao rushed in front of him. His right hand was buffed with heaven and earth attributes and various special effects. Ka-ka-ka. Ka-ka-ka. Hundreds of feet of space collapsed, forming a dense spider web. Boom! The ground caved in and dust flew. Chapter 1653. Jun Changshao made a move. He was so fast that the itinerant cultivators in the distance couldn't see him clearly. The big shots of the 10 major immortal sects, Junren Tonggu, and the other itinerant cultivators were powerful, so they could naturally see him. So when the dust flew, all of them widened their eyes without exception. What did they see that made them so shocked? They saw Jun Changshao approach the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect in an instant, and then punch him in the face, knocking him to the ground. This seemingly ordinary attack actually contained the explosive profound truths of heaven and earth. The peak, Masato Kitano exclaimed. The truth-seeking realm. Junren Tonggu, who had been worried about his disciple, was stunned for a while and then said ecstatically, "Did he comprehend something again? That's why he suddenly broke through to this level." Because Jun Changshao had found a reason to improve in advance. Now that he burst out with the strength of the peak of the truth-seeking realm, he instantly thought of the enlightenment. How is that possible? Lin Haoyan and the other 9 patriarchs were stunned. They could accept that that guy had the peak strength, but they couldn't accept that he had punched the patriarch of Jin away. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, blowing away the dust. A huge pit appeared, and the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect was sunken at the bottom. There was a fist mark on his chest, and his whole face was twisted to the extreme. Ouch! Jun Changshao, who was suspended in the air, was a little surprised. Not bad. He approached like lightning and attacked like lightning. He had used this trick on Lin Shangyi before. The latter was directly punched, while the patriarch of Jin was only injured. It was obvious that he was stronger. Of course. After all, he was the patriarch of an immortal sect. Damn it! He tried to stand up from the bottom of the pit, suppressing the pain in his chest, and said angrily, "I was careless." Boom! Boom! At this moment, heaven-crossing palm prints fell from the sky and hit the deep pit with great precision. The ground trembled frequently, and the cracks extended infinitely. The martial arts technique that he had taken from Gu Tianxing was performed by Jun Changshao, who was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. Not only was it more powerful, but it also consumed very little energy, so he could perform it hundreds of times in a short time. Junren Tonggu's mouth twitched. He hoped that his disciple would be able to reverse the situation and create a miracle. But he never imagined that his disciple would obtain absolute suppression from the very start of the battle, and even crazily bully an immortal sect patriarch. Excitement and exhilaration. Junren Tonggu could not help but raise his hand. Slap. Masato Kitano beat him to it and said, "If you can feel pain, then you're not dreaming." Ha ha ha. Junren Tonggu covered his painful face and laughed. It's true, it's true. My disciple is beating up the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect." A moment later, Jun Changshao was tired and stopped. Throughout the entire process, he was not out of breath, and his waist did not hurt. He was even a little spirited. The patriarch of the hidden immortal sect was in a miserable state. Originally, he had been injured by a punch, and now, he was being crazily bombarded by the heaven-crossing palm. He had sunk into the ground, and his entire body was twitching violently. He seemed to be half dead. It wasn't that he was weak. It was that Go Sheng was too strong. Lin Haoyan and the other 8 patriarchs' expressions were extremely ugly. They had thought that the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect could easily kill this kid. But in the end, he was killed in an instant. Whoosh! Jun Changshao flew back to the mountain gate and took a sip of tea. He narrowed his eyes and said, "This tea should be drunk while it's hot." In ancient times, the second master of the hidden immortal sect killed Hua Xiong with warm wine. Today, Go Sheng has hot tea. Damn it! The anger in Lin Haoyan and the other's eyes was enough to start a prairie fire. Jun Changshao stood up, shook his head and arms, and said proudly, "That wasn't even a warm-up. If you want to fight, I'll be there anytime." The 10 great immortal sects wanted to capture the leader first, and he also wanted to get rid of the patriarch. The rest of the troops were nothing to be afraid of. Of course, Jun Changshao added, "I don't bully the weak. If you think you can't beat me, you can come together." What was arrogance? This was arrogance. Even a pitiful villain like the demon ancestor didn't dare to challenge the top forces of the 10 great immortal sects alone. This guy, Zhenren Tonggu, wanted to curse. Dealing with the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect in such a short time had indeed shocked him greatly. He also realized that his disciples' cultivation was unfathomable. However, there was still the patriarch of the 9 great immortal sects present. If he asked them to attack together, he would be looking for trouble. Listen to Jun Patriarch's words. The patriarch of the supreme immortal sect said coldly, "You plan to fight the 9 of us alone?" That's right. Jun Changshao hoped to deal with the enemies as soon as possible, and then bring people to attack their home. After all, they must have plenty of wealth and resources. The patriarch of the supreme immortal sect said, "What do you all think?" Since Jun Patriarch is so confident, an immortal sect leader said lightly, "We naturally have to cooperate." The patriarch of the Jin family's strength was on par with theirs, but that guy was instantly killed. They definitely didn't have the confidence to fight alone. But if it was a group fight, then, come on, who's not afraid of who? Face was really important. If it were individual cultivators like Zhenren Tonggu and Masato Kitano, because they abided by the rules of the martial world, they wouldn't fight with numbers. On the other hand, the 10 great immortal sects, who boasted of being high and mighty, didn't care at all. Of course, it wasn't an open fight, so it was normal for them to gang up on him. When the matter was over, they would fabricate some unforgivable crimes for Jun Changshao and the sect of all times. The world would only praise them and not care about anything else. The demon ancestor was an example. Back then, he was jointly killed by the ancestors of the 10 great immortal sects. Today, the people of the upper realm only remembered to get rid of evil for the people. Who would care about bullying with numbers? As long as it was defined as evil, as long as it could be eradicated, the process and means were not important. Jun Changshao once again stood in the area where he shattered the space with a punch. Unlike before when he only had one opponent, this time there was Lin Haoyan and the other 8 patriarch of the immortal sect. Their cultivation base was fully unleashed, and the aura they formed madly disturbed the space, causing it to gradually distort and fold. Martial artists rushed to the scene one after another. When they saw the patriarch of the sect of all times, and the patriarch of the immortal sect standing in the air above the mountains, they were all dumbfounded. What? Jun Patriarch wants to fight the 9 great immortal sects alone? After hearing the news, the individual cultivators from all walks of life widened their eyes. Is he crazy? Fighting the patriarch of the 9 great immortal sects alone? Jun Patriarch is courting death. From a rational point of view, the individual cultivators who came to watch the show didn't think highly of Jun Changshao. After all, this kind of behavior was like throwing an egg against a rock. Of course, there were also people who admired him. Facing nine-peak truth-seeking realm cultivators alone, he could still act calmly. His mentality and courage were praiseworthy. No wonder he dared to barge into the realm hall and snatch the mineral veins of the 10 great immortal sects not long ago. June Patriarch, Lin Haoyan said indifferently. Can we begin? It was a little wrong to fight with numbers. Moreover, there were more and more spectators, so he had to show his poise. Wait. Jun Changxiao took out a comb and tidied his bangs. My head can be broken, blood can flow, but my hairstyle can't be messed up. The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. The 10 great immortal sects had invaded on a large scale. It was obvious that they wanted to destroy the sect of all times. But this guy was still in the mood to comb his hair. Did he not know the seriousness of the matter? Chapter 1654. Jun Changxiao knew the seriousness of the matter, which was why he combed his hair in front of others to maintain the image and demeanor of a sect master. Disciple, Jimren Tonggu said telepathically, it's not too late to retreat. If they dare to attack, I will protect you with my life. Jun Changxiao put the comb into his space ring and said with a smile, Master, I have a surprise for you today. Oh no. After a pause he said, a surprise for the upper world. The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. You haven't brought us any surprises yet. Instead, you've scared us. Fighting the masters of the 9 immortal sects alone. Whoosh. At this moment, Jun Changxiao's body surged with the power of the stone statues, and his fists quickly turned into stone. The strength of 9-peak truth-seeking realm cultivators could not be underestimated. In order to show his respect, Goxing activated the bloodline of the stone statue clan. Damn, Gong Sun Ho said in surprise. When did the patriarch comprehend the second form? There was no need to explain. Jun Changxiao turned to look at the mountain gate and said impatiently, Why aren't you coming over to help? Rose of Flowers was stunned. She had helped Goxing many times. It was rare to see him take the initiative. Swish. While thinking, she had already flown over and stuck her face to her husband's back, turning into a green light and merging into his body. Under the accompaniment of the prelude of the Dagger Society, Jun Changxiao's black hair gradually turned green, and his grassland-colored eyes gradually became extremely sharp. The bloodline of the stone statue clan was activated, and the Rose of Flowers fused with him. This was Gongsun Jun Rose. Humph. Seeing that the guy's hair and eyebrows had turned green, Lin Haoyan sneered. What a showy trick. Bang, there was an explosion, and the space suddenly shook. Lin Haoyan's expression changed, and he subconsciously stepped back. Jun Changxiao came in front of him like a cannonball, and the green dragon crescent blade in his hand suddenly slashed down, close to his neck. Rip. Wherever the blade passed, space crumbled. Jun Changxiao assumed a sweeping posture with his saber. A huge crack gradually appeared in the area in front of him, as if it was a natural chasm that had existed since ancient times. His hair was green. He also wielded the green dragon crescent blade. At this moment, if Go Sheng were to stick a few strands of his beard, he would definitely have the strength to cosplay as Guan Yu. So fast! Jimren Tonggu exclaimed. I almost missed it. Your disciple's wife seems to have gained quite a bit of strength after fusing with that blind man's body. Masato Katano said solemnly. Not bad, Jimren Tonggu said. She is indeed my disciple's virtuous wife. The camera panned to the battlefield, and Lin Haoyan staggered back a few steps. Beads of sweat instantly appeared on his forehead, and a chill ran down his spine. Although Jun Changxiao's saber attack looked ordinary and mediocre, it actually contained the supreme profound meaning of heaven and earth. If he had not retreated in time, his head would have been separated from his body. Go! The other 8 patriarchs were all top powerhouses. Naturally, they would not be shocked by how fast the other party's saber attack was. They hurriedly took the opportunity to press forward. In a battle between masters, there was no room for any flaws to be exposed. Jun Changxiao attacked openly, and there were simply too many flaws to count. Whoosh! The 8-peak stage truth-seeking realm cultivators all used their full strength, forming a monstrous air wave that instantly squeezed the space, causing it to quickly distort and crack. A battle of this level really could not be described with words. It could only be described with pen and ink after the comic was published. At that time, it would be known that this special effect was worth at most 50 cents. Blue Wave Dark Art. Blazing Fire 8 Desolation. Flying Rainbow in the Sky. Whoosh. Ka ka ka. The patriarch of the 8 major immortal sects aimed to kill Jun Changshao instantly. As soon as he attacked, he used the immortal martial arts that he had immersed himself in for many years. The entire Aeon Immortal Mountain was instantly rendered magnificent. At that moment, all the itinerant cultivators who were watching the battle from afar held their breaths. There was only horror in their eyes. Swish! In the face of all kinds of attacks, Jun Changshao was calm and composed. He immediately spun the green dragon crescent blade, and the blade was instantly enveloped by the power of the fire soul. He suddenly waved it and shouted, "Red Heaven Raging Flame Slash." Whoosh! The scorching hot giant chop seal erupted, and rushed towards the various martial skills with a momentum that could sweep away 1,000 armies. Red Heaven Raging Flame Slash. What a nostalgic martial arts technique. Today, not only did Jun Changshao use the green dragon crescent blade, but he also unleashed a power that far exceeded the upper limit. Boom! Boom! The scorching flame slash collided with all kinds of martial arts in midair, and the impact crazily spread through the space. A powerful pressure erupted from above, destroying the rocks and trees, and the ground caved in by several feet. Whoosh! The billowing flames spread even further. Retreat! The itinerant cultivators who thought they were hiding far away panicked when they saw the menacing flames. The sect of all times was very safe, because Ryu Sinan used the power of space to form layers of protection outside the mountain gate. As long as the battle did not happen close by, it was not a problem to resist the aftershocks. Boom! Boom! In the sky above the sunken ground, Jun Changshao swung his blade. The scorching flames and evil power erupted, not only shaking heaven and earth, but also the hearts of people. Lin Haoyan and the others collapsed as they fought. Because the battle had begun, not only did they not gain the upper hand, but they were also in a passive position. This guy's aura was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. No matter how strong he was, they should not be suppressed, unless he was already at the insight realm. In fact, Jun Changshao had just entered the peak of the truth-seeking realm. He could temporarily suppress them because of the halo and invincibility of the same level. Of course, it was also because of his bloodline and support. Press! At this moment, Lin Haoyan let out a loud roar. Both of his hands were raised to the sky, and a wave of energy with a different attribute erupted. Immediately, it condensed into a huge mountain that seemed real and illusory, and pressed down on Jun Changshao. From the audience's point of view, the mountain covered half of the sky, and its momentum was huge. Swish! Jun Changshao went up with his blade, and used the blade to resist the mountain, but because the force was too heavy, his body couldn't bear it and sank a lot. Let's put pressure on him together. Lin Haoyan roared. Swish! Swish! The other 8 patriarch of the immortal sect immediately gathered the pure power of the true spirit, which seemed to turn into a raging wave and pressed over, and merged with the huge mountain, causing the gravity to suddenly increase. Seeing this, Jun Changshao knew that he couldn't resist, so he simply gave up resisting, turned into a stream of light, and flew down at an extremely fast speed, finally landing on the cracked and collapsed ground with a loud bang. You can't run! Lin Haoyan roared and controlled the mountain to smash over. However, after Jun Changshao landed, he stood proudly with his blade horizontally, obviously not intending to dodge. This momentum, it made people respect him. Whoosh! 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 The mountain that contained the power of 9 people was close to materialization, and it pressed down with terrifying power and momentum. Disciple! Jimrin Tonggu's expression was ferocious. At this moment, the situation was extremely dangerous. He wanted to rush over, but he was stopped by Masato Kitano. It's too late. Chapter 1655. The technique that Lin Haoyan used was called the Ling Tian Desolation Suppression Mantra. It was an extremely powerful martial art of the sect. Its advantage was that it could combine external forces to form multiple layers of power. With the power provided by the 8 patriarchs, the huge mountain that seemed real and fake completely materialized. Under the explosion, the mountains and rivers shattered. Although Jinren Tonggu wanted to share the burden with his disciple, he could not make it in time. Moreover, the aura of the huge mountain seemed to have formed a barrier around it. Even if he rushed over, he would be blocked. No one could help Jun Changshao. He could only rely on himself. It's over. An elder of the Ling Tian Celestial Sect concluded. This sentence was approved by his fellow sect members because they knew how powerful the Ling Tian Desolation Suppression Mantra was. They also knew that with the support of the 8 patriarchs, the explosive power was enough to destroy the world. Whoosh, whoosh, crack, crack. The huge mountain that occupied everyone's field of vision sank rapidly. A powerful force crazily squeezed the area covered by the barrier. The space folded layer by layer, and a blade-like gale swept up. Patriarch! The upper echelons and disciples of the sect of all times were worried. However, when they saw Jun Changshao standing on the ground, his green hair and body affected by the gale, his face was calm and composed, they were all relieved. After all these years of interaction, they believed that the patriarch was confident. Lin Haoyan shouted angrily. The patriarch of the sect of all times has committed treason. Today, he will be killed here as a warning to others. Committed treason? Jun Changshao's lips curled into a smile. Whoosh. Suddenly, his body was enveloped by some kind of energy. His chest and limbs gradually materialized into armor and boots. When the phoenix feather purple gold crown was placed on his head, the complete 3-piece Great Sage set was completely activated. Great Sage, Jun Changshao asked in his heart, are you willing to be suppressed again? Whoosh, whoosh. A special force suddenly surged out of his body and instantly merged with his consciousness. His eyes flashed red, and his whole face twisted. He bared his teeth and said, no. Stomp. He spread his legs and clenched his fists. Whoosh, whoosh. A terrifying force of wildness erupted from behind him, rapidly converging into a giant ape with a ferocious face. It stomped its feet, pounded its chest and roared. The great sage had transformed into his true form. In that moment, it was as if the palm of Tathagata was pressing down, but also as if it were a 5-fingered mountain. The raging ape roared madly, as if it was resisting the unfairness of fate, as if it was fighting against the heavens. Boom! At this moment, the entire upper realm suddenly shook violently. Jinren Tonggu, Masato Kitano, and the other cultivators focused their attention on the battlefield. They saw the ferocious ape beast standing in the shattered space, holding the mountain firmly with both hands, preventing it from sinking even an inch. Although the barrier had isolated their auras, they could still tell from their behavior that they were rebellious, defying heaven and earth. Reverse yin-yang, defying the gods and Buddhas. Roar! The giant ape roared angrily, and the primordial power in its body burst out crazily, directly lifting up the mountain with prejudice. How is this possible? The faces of Lin Haoyan and the others changed. Even with the 9 of them working together, they were unable to suppress a single macaque. Who? At this moment, the mountain was slowly lifted into the air. Lin Haoyan and the others frantically exerted pressure, but they could not stop it from rising. Unbelievable. The itinerant cultivators were shocked. They thought that Jun Changshao would be smashed to pieces when the 9 patriarch worked together to strengthen the mountain. But in the end, the ape beast alone blocked it. Roar! The great sage roared again, and the primordial power in his arms burst out. Whoosh! The mountain was directly thrown out. Boom! The mountain fell to the ground, and it was earth-shattering. Swoosh! 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 Lin Haoyan and the others all suffered from the backlash and flew in all directions. When they stabilized their bodies, their faces were pale, and the blood in their bodies was restless, and they almost vomited blood. The giant ape beast gradually collapsed after neutralizing the Ling Tian Desolation Suppression art. Jun Changshao, who seemed to have transformed into a macaque, also returned to his human form. He quickly took out a simple sword and disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he was already close to the Supreme Patriarch. Broken macaques. They were all broken macaques. Clang! The long sword was unsheathed, and light flashed. Not good. The Patriarch's expression changed in shock. He dodged to the side regardless of his status. However, no matter how fast his reaction was, it couldn't compare to the speed of the immortal sword. Pucci, half of his body had just moved away, and his right arm, which didn't keep up with the rhythm, flew out. Ah! An intense burning sensation came from the wound, causing the sect master of the Supreme Immortal Sect to scream in pain. Jumren Tongu, Masato Kitano, and the other experts were dumbfounded. The mountain pressed down. The situation was originally very unfavorable for Jun Changshao, but it was easily broken by him. He even cut off the arm of an immortal sect master at an extremely fast speed. The change in the rhythm was really unexpected. Die! Huff huff! A sound that seemed to come from hell sounded in his ears. The Patriarch, who was screaming in pain, felt a strong sense of uneasiness. He wanted to avoid it. However, he suddenly felt his body become incomparably light. Before the sect master of the Supreme Immortal Sect lost his consciousness, he discovered his corpse in his field of vision, and gradually moved away from it. Was he killed? There was no time for him to think about it, because his soul had already returned to the 9 heavens. Shua! Jun Changshao waved the immortal sword, and caught the head of the Patriarch with the sword. He looked at Lin Haoyan and the others with killing intent and said, "All of you will die." Silence. Complete silence. The hidden Patriarch of the Immortal Sect had been beaten into a deep pit. The martial artists from all sides were already shocked. Now that they saw the Patriarch of the Supreme Immortal Sect being beheaded, the shock it brought would only be even more terrifying. Patriarch! The eyes of the upper echelons of the Supreme Immortal Sect were about to split open. Lin Haoyan and the others were suspended in the air with expressions of disbelief. They would never have thought that someone would die under that fellow's sword in the blink of an eye. And the one who died was not the Patriarch of the Dao Sect, but the one who died was the Patriarch of the Immortal Sect. Since the 10 great immortal sects ruled the upper realm, when had such a great figure died in battle? He had never died. It did not mean that he would not die. Today, Jun Changshao used his actions to tell the upper realm that those who offended the sect of all times must be killed. Sword. There's a problem. Lin Haoyan and the others quickly calmed down and locked onto the simple sword in Jun Changshao's hand. They instantly defined it in their hearts. Immortal level. After reaching the peak of the truth-seeking realm, one had already comprehended the profound meaning of heaven and earth. It was very difficult to take their head with conventional weapons. Now that the Patriarch of the Supreme Immortal Sect had been beheaded so easily, it was definitely a divine weapon. Shua! Jun Changshao waved his sword, and the head flew to the front of the mountain gate. He locked onto an immortal sect master and said coldly, "You're next." At this moment his killing intent surged. It was impossible for him to extort money. Since the 10 great immortal sects had invaded, he could forget about leaving alive. The immortal sect master, who was locked onto, trembled and subconsciously took a few steps back. Lin Haoyan shouted, "Although this child's sword is extraordinary, it's definitely difficult to control. We don't have to be afraid." That's right. The higher the quality of the sword, the higher the requirements to use it. Jun Changshao seemed to have taken the head of the Supreme Immortal Sect Patriarch in an ordinary manner. But in fact, he had consumed a lot of energy in an instant. Otherwise, how could he have killed him in an instant? Chapter 1656. Many people might not realize the seriousness of the war between the 10 major celestial sects and the sect of all times. Only after witnessing the death of the Supreme Celestial Sect Patriarch did they realize that the war between the two sides would affect the structure of the upper realm. What did that mean? Everyone knew that the 10 major celestial sects were the leaders of the upper realm. Jun Changshao's killing was equivalent to subverting their authority. What could they do to him today? Tomorrow, the the sect of all times would be more prestigious than the celestial sects. Indeed, this matter involved not only life and death, but also whether the sect of all times could break the balance and become an existence on par with the 10 major celestial sects. Tongu, Masato Kitano said in a daze, "Your disciple killed a patriarch of a celestial sect." Jinren Tongu's expression was even more sluggish than his. Obviously, he did not expect Jun Changshao to turn the situation around and kill the supreme celestial sect patriarch. What was this? That's right, it was a surprise. Haha. Jinren Tongu looked up and laughed. Good kill. After the 10 major celestial sects destroyed the demonic tribe, they had always been high and mighty and set many unreasonable laws. As a rogue cultivator, he could not stand it. He could not stand it, but he could not defeat them. So he could only keep it in his heart. Now that one of the patriarch of the 10 major celestial sects died in the hands of his disciple, it was too damn satisfying. Many rogue cultivators were also secretly happy, but they certainly did not dare to show it like Jinren Tongu. After all, even if one of the patriarchs died, the foundation of the sect was still there. It was still an insurmountable mountain. Go! Lin Haoyan shouted. He also realized that if he did not get rid of Jun Changshao today, the celestial sect's prestige would plummet. However, even though he wanted to kill him, the other patriarch did not respond. Instead, they looked at Jun Changshao with fear, afraid that they would follow in the footsteps of the supreme celestial sect patriarch. You! Lin Haoyan was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Jun Changshao held his sword in front of him and said coldly, "I'll go." Hoo-hoo. In an instant, an incomparably sharp sword momentum surged out from his body and surged out in all directions like a tidal wave. Everyone understood Zhou Hong's sword Dao. Today I'll show you my sword Dao. Hoo. The speed at which the sword aura spread out increased, and it instantly covered the entire sect of all times. The disciples immediately understood and took out their swords from their spatial rings in unison. Then, they raised their swords up high with the hilts facing upwards. Buzz! Buzz! Under the guidance of the sword chi, the sword trembled violently. What's going on? The spectators with swords in the distance saw that their weapons were shaking uncontrollably, and they were all stunned. Clang! Clang! Suddenly, the sword flew out of its sheath and turned into a stream of light. Swish! Swish! From the sect of all times' position and the area where the rogue cultivators gathered, sword lights that blotted out the sky and covered the earth flew over at an extremely fast speed, like dazzling satin. At the same time, Jun Changshao's entire body was enveloped by sword light, and his originally cold eyes became even sharper. Swordsmanship. He was not as good as Zhou Hong. However, now that he was holding the supreme immortal sword, the sword chi that he emitted had a different flavor. Hoo! Thousands of sword chi gathered and strengthened his body. Jun Changshao flew out with his sword and shouted, 10,000 swords in one! Swish! The gathered swords suddenly flashed with a dazzling light, as if they had turned into a giant sword that pierced through the void, and rushed over at a speed that could pierce through the void. The pupils of the targeted patriarch of the immortal sect contracted, and a strong sense of death surged in his heart, causing him to scream uncontrollably. Save me! Save him! Lin Haoyan exclaimed. However, before he could do anything, he heard a splashing sound, and hot blood bloomed in the sky like fireworks. Crack! Lin Haoyan and the other 7 people froze in midair, and their eyes gradually filled with horror. The camera turned to Jun Changshao standing behind the Euphoria Immortal Sect's patriarch, whose chest had been pierced through. The thousands of swords that had gathered together gradually dispersed, and the blades flashed with a dazzling light. Plop! The corpse fell and blood flowed out. At this moment, heaven and earth fell into silence again, and everyone's eyes widened. The second patriarch of the 10 immortal sects had died. The other patriarch of the immortal sects, who were already a little afraid, were even more shocked when they saw that another one of their companions had died under the sword. They had sealed the 2 clans and let everyone hear, thinking that they could easily eliminate the sect of all times. But in the end, they had lost 2 patriarchs in a row. They had never thought that such a plot would happen. Swish. Jun Changshao turned around and said with a smile, "Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" Lin Haoyan's expression was extremely ugly. The death of the Euphoria Immortal Sect's patriarch made him realize how powerful Jun Changshao was. At this moment, he began to hesitate whether to retreat or not. "Before you die," Jun Changshao said, "I want you to understand how ridiculous your previous actions were." Swish. He raised his left hand and said, "Come out, my contract beast." Buzz. The space outside the mountain gate suddenly disappeared. Accompanied by a sharp cry, a huge creature shrouded in flames flapped its wings and hovered in the sky like a burning sun. The Vermilion Bird King, Jinren Tonggu, Masato Kitano, and the other itinerant cultivators were stunned. Why would the king of an ancient clan that had disappeared 100,000 years ago suddenly appear in the sect of all times and be defeated by Jun Changshao? "Fuck," Masato Kitano said in disbelief. "This is his contract beast." If Jun Changshao killing 2 immortal sect masters in a row wasn't shocking enough, the appearance of the Vermilion Bird King would definitely make it look cool and special effects instantly. Whoosh. Scorching heat waves spread everywhere, forming a terrifying pressure. The martial artists were far enough away, but when they felt the heat waves, they could only circulate their energy to resist and retreat far away in fear. "Everyone," Jun Changshao said calmly, "do you think that you can destroy the sect of all times just because you sealed the ancestral lands of the stone statue race and the dragon race?" With the contract beast in the sky, the pretentious aura was extremely strong. On this day, he had waited for a long time. Finally, he could act happily to his heart's content. Go Sheng's pretentiousness had reached a new height, but Lin Haoyan and the others were very uncomfortable. It was undeniable that they had always thought that sealing the 2 clans was equivalent to cutting off Jun Changshao's wings. It was only today that they realized that this kid was not only terrifyingly strong, but also had invisible wings. Awesome. So Jun Patriarch still has the Vermilion Bird race as a trump card. This race is not classified as one of the 4 major clans, because they often disappear. The Vermilion Bird King fought with the Dragon Emperor back then, and both sides were evenly matched. Everyone discussed quietly, and the shock in their eyes was even stronger. Patriarch Lin, a patriarch of an immortal sect, said telepathically, "Let's retreat." Jun Changshao had killed 2 peak-stage truth-seeking realm cultivators in a row, which had already made them wary. Now that he had summoned the Vermilion Bird King, they had no intention to fight at all. Damn it! Even though Lin Haoyan was unwilling, he could only turn it into one sentence. "Let's go." They were scared. "Go." Jun Changshao raised his sword and pointed at the patriarch. He said coldly, "The sect of all times is not a brothel where you can come and go as you wish." Swish. Swish. Millions of devil army flew out from both sides and enveloped the people of the 10 major immortal sects in a large net. The brand new Diablo entered performance mode under the control of the pilots. Black and White Rakshasa, Ding Xingwang, Li Qingyang, and the others fully unleashed their cultivation and entered combat mode. At this moment, they were only waiting for the Patriarch's order. They would destroy the invading enemies and show the power of the sect of all times to the world. Chapter 1657. The 10 great immortal sects had been looking for an opportunity to eradicate the sect of all times. With the help of the magnificent Sky Dao sect, they finally got what they wanted. However, Jun Changshao's display of strength and the existence of his invisible wings had caught them off guard. What should they do now? 2 immortal sect patriarch had died, so they had to retreat. Otherwise, they would definitely die if they continued fighting. They were afraid of the Vermilion Bird King that suddenly flew out of the sect. After all, the aura of this beast was clearly above the peak of the truth-seeking realm. Retreat? They had to see if Jun Changshao and the sect of all times would agree or not. From the millions of devil army soldiers and a large number of mechas, and from the fact that the upper echelons were fully armed, it was clear that this was not a brothel. It was not a place where one could come and go as one pleased. Disciples, listen to my orders. Clean up all these invading trash for me. Jun Changxiao's voice resounded throughout the ancient immortal mountain. In response, the disciples shouted in unison and charged over, dragging all kinds of lights behind them. Roar! Roar! Most of the members of the Spirit Beast Hall flew out from the mountain peak. The school uniforms they wore were instantly torn apart, and the huge demon beast's body was quickly revealed. Fuck! The Purple King roared. Why didn't you take off your clothes in advance? After saying that, he looked at Yuan Gongzi with a pained expression. The latter shrugged and took out a small book. He silently wrote on it, Spirit Beast Hall, who destroyed the school uniform. How many beast cores will be fined? Z felt wronged, but he could only turn it into endless fighting spirit. Then, he obediently took off his school uniform and rushed out wearing only a pair of red underpants. In the sea of people, he had a different style. The sect of all times had been using the hidden cultivation technique. Now that the patriarch had given the order to wipe them out, they naturally would not suppress it. Therefore, when they completely released their realm, the aura formed instantly suppressed the 100,000 troops of the immortal sect. They are all at the core transformation realm. After feeling the oppressive aura, the itinerant cultivator's eyes almost popped out. The strength of the people gathered by the 10 great immortal sects was also very terrifying, but they were not particularly shocked. After all, the elites of the 10 great sects were gathered. However, now that the disciples of the sect of all times had appeared, and any one of them was at the revolving core realm, it felt like a dream. Lin Haoyan and the other patriarch were dumbfounded. An entire sect was filled with revolving core cultivators. Not to mention the 2 truth sects. Even his own immortal sect would find it extremely difficult to accomplish this. Master! Jun Changxiao shouted. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? After a moment of silence, Jinren Tonggu replied, What a fucking surprise, what a fucking surprise! His disciple was strong enough to kill a peak-seeking truth realm cultivator. And she also had the Vermilion Bird King as her contract beast. Now, the sect disciples were all at the revolving core realm, and there were even many at the upper and middle seeking truth realm. This was simply beyond imagination. No wonder he didn't want us to take action. It turns out that he didn't need us at all. Kill! Kill! The disciples of the sect of all times shouted in unison, their voices shaking the heavens and the earth. After coming to the upper realm for nearly 10 years, they had followed the patriarch all the way until now. Now they were finally going to show their beautiful wings to the world. Retreat, retreat! Retreat, retreat, retreat! Lin Haoyan roared. They had already lost their will to fight, and seeing the disciples of the sect of all times pouncing on them like mad dogs, they had to leave quickly to avoid causing too many casualties and shaking the foundation of the sect. Foundation? Sorry. From the moment they decided on the plan to seal the ancestral land and target the sect of all times, they were destined to pay a painful price for their actions. I have always adhered to the principle of staying out of each other's business. Since the 10 great immortal sects came to bully the sect of all times today, then don't blame the sect of all times for retaliating. Jun Changxiao was very cowardly when he was afraid, but he was also very tough when he was tough. Today, not only did he want to destroy the invaders, but he also wanted to go to the territory of the 10 great immortal sects. To put it bluntly, Jun Changxiao was also waiting for an opportunity. Today, he finally had enough reason to destroy these rule setters. Boom, 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 boom. The new generation of battle armor number 66 flew in the sky, and streams of light gathered by various arrays blasted into the enemy like cannonballs, instantly injuring many disciples. Swoosh, swoosh. On the other side, dozens of mechas led by Zhong Yi launched a high-altitude bombardment, and the light instantly lit up the sky. When the 10 great immortal sects heard the order to retreat, they naturally did not want to continue fighting, so they retreated one after another. However, they were quickly blocked by a large number of devil soldiers, and were forced to launch a breakout attack. The overall strength of these people was not bad. All kinds of energy burst out, shaking the heavens and earth and destroying space. However, although their cultivation was only at the first transformation core realm, the devil soldiers were wearing the new battle armor, made of heavenly spirit-quenched stone, so they were not hurt at all in the rain of bullets. How is this possible? After the crazy bombardment, seeing that they were safe and sound, the disciples of the immortal sects were all dumbfounded. Whoosh! At this moment, Jingji controlled the mecha to rush over from the side. A sharp saber appeared in her hand out of thin air, and she directly stabbed it into the depths of space, tearing sparks and lightning along the way. Oh no! Bang! 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 Wherever the blade passed, corpses flew everywhere. Too strong. Feeling the super combat power brought by the new mecha, Jingji's eyes flickered with excitement in the cockpit. Some people might ask if this disciple had given the author some benefits. She had appeared too often recently. Of course not. The more non-core disciples appeared, the more it meant that they were about to die. Whoosh! Whoosh! Several high-level truth-seeking realm cultivators of the 10 great immortal sects flew over. They gathered energy in their palms and directly blasted various parts of the mecha. Powerful true spirit force seeped into the mecha, destroying the structure of the array like a tornado. Beep! Beep! The alarm sounded in their ears. Sigh! Jingji took off her helmet, revealing a sad face. It's time to say goodbye to the mecha again. With that, she pressed the self-destruct button. Boom! Scorching light flashed, and then a mushroom cloud was formed. Swoosh! Swoosh! Several high-level immortal sects flew out of the airwave. Their hair was charred black, and they looked extremely miserable. Boom! 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 In other areas, the high-level black and white Rakshasa had already started fighting with the immortal sects. Because of their strength and equipment, they gradually gained the upper hand. Of course, it was almost impossible to stop the 100,000 enemies who were determined to retreat with the current strength of the sect of all times. Therefore, they had to rely on the Vermilion Bird King. Whoosh! It flapped its flaming wings and instantly appeared above the crowd. Swish! 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 Fireballs containing extremely powerful power fell from the sky like rain. Whether it was the high-level members or disciples of the 10 great immortal sects, as long as they were hit, they would turn into ashes on the spot. Junrin Tongu and Masato Katano's mouths twitched. In fact, after the Vermilion Bird King appeared, they realized that if Jun Changshao was willing to use this power, the 100,000 immortal sect martial artists would all die here. Run! No way! In the face of absolute power, life was like grass. Seeing so many disciples die under the scorching flames, although Lin Haoyan and the others were furious, they could only suppress their grief and anger. At this moment, they had to escape as soon as possible, or else swoosh! Sword Chi flew over, extremely powerful. Lin Haoyan and the others hurriedly staggered back. After stabilizing their bodies, they saw Jun Changshao standing behind them with his sword. He said coldly, "I'll send you on your way." Pooh! Suddenly, the sound of blood splattering could be heard. The few patriarch hurriedly turned their heads and saw a sword mark on the neck of the patriarch of the Golden Feather Immortal Sect. His horrified eyes gradually lost their luster and vitality. 3 of the leaders of the 10 great immortal sects were dead. Chapter 1658. Clang! The Vermilion Bird King chirped in the sky, and scorching flames fell like cannonballs. The itinerant cultivators in the distance were all dumbfounded, because they could clearly see that any martial artist of the 10 immortal sects who came into contact with the power of the flames would turn into nothingness. How terrifying! This is a one-sided massacre. I'm afraid the 10 immortal sects are finished this time. With so many elites dying in the Aeon Immortal Mountain, the foundation of the sect would definitely be shaken. If it was serious, they would probably never be able to recover from this setback. Boom! Suddenly there was an explosion. The itinerant cultivators looked over and saw that the ground in the distance had caved in. An immortal sect master was lying in the depths with an eye-catching sword mark on his chest. He had completely lost his life. This was the fourth person to die. Everyone hurriedly looked up and saw Jun Changxiao standing proudly in the sky. His entire body was enveloped by a dark aura, as if he was a demon that had walked out of hell. Lin Haoyan and the other four patriarchs' foreheads were covered in cold sweat. They looked calm on the surface, but they were actually panicking inside. Killing a peak-stage truth-seeking realm cultivator was as easy as pie. Who would be able to stand it? If it were anyone else, they would have begged for mercy long ago. However, they were the patriarch of the 10 immortal sects that ruled the upper world. Even if the situation was very unfavorable to them, they would not lower themselves to beg Jun Changxiao for forgiveness. Of course, even if they knelt down and kowtowed, it would be useless. Jun Changxiao had already made up his mind to kill all the enemies who came to attack him. He would use his actions to tell the upper world that those who offended the sect of all times would be killed. Speaking of which, the main mission was to raise the sect to the level of an immortal sect within 100 years. Now that he had trampled on such a force, wouldn't it be equivalent to completing the mission in disguise? Thinking of this, Jun Changxiao's killing intent became even stronger. A general's success is built on thousands of bones. Today, I will use the corpses of the 10 immortal sects to build the throne of the sect of all times. 10,000 swords in one. Puchi. All things as swords. Puchi. With the support of the divine weapon, and the first and second forms of the 10,000 swords returned to origin, Jun Changxiao instantly reaped the lives of 2 immortal sect patriarch, not giving them any chance to escape. After breaking through to the peak of the truth-seeking realm, perhaps only powerhouses like Gongsun Ruoli could do anything to him in the upper realm. 2 more dead. When the cultivators watching the battle from afar saw that only Lin Haoyan and the other 2 were standing in the sky, their expressions became more and more interesting. He was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm, the top powerhouse in the upper realm. But now, 6 of them had been killed by Jun Changxiao in such a short period of time. How terrifying was this? Someone would ask, aren't there 10 patriarch? How come there were only 9 of them? That was because Jun Changxiao had defeated the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect first. At this moment, this guy was lying in the deep pit, pretending to be dead. Occasionally, he would take the opportunity to cover his face with the soil, secretly praying, "Don't find me, don't find me." Puchi. The sword light flew over and pierced through his chest. Puchi. The force of the spurting blood sent the soil flying, revealing the hideous face of the patriarch of the hidden immortal sect. Before he died, he roared in his heart. Who was the one who asked, "You caused my tragic death"? At this point, 7 of the 10 immortal sect masters were dead. Powerhouses of this level were previously considered to be extremely powerful, but now they were lying in the forest as corpses. It was really a pity. Next, Jun Changxiao raised the ultimate immortal sword and pointed it at Lin Haoyan, saying in a cold voice, "It's your turn." From the moment he appeared until now, he had been the most talkative. This made Go Sheng guess that the invasion of the sect of all times was planned by him. That was right. Lin Haoyan was indeed in charge of the dog extermination operation. He did not kill them immediately, because he wanted to let them witness the deaths of several patriarch, so that they would realize how ridiculous it was to invade the sect of all times. Hee. Jun Changxiao laughed strangely. Let me ask you, do you regret it? The system was speechless, suddenly laughing strangely at this juncture. It was easy for the reader to suspect that the host was the villain. Actually, the 10 immortal sects and the sect of all times did not have a good or bad side, because one was defending authority, and the other was challenging authority. No matter who lived or died, they would not talk about righteousness. I regret it. I regret it so much. Lin Haoyan clenched his fists, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. If I knew that you would grow to this extent in such a short period of time, I would have killed you in the void when my sect descended. You are not regretting it. Jun Changxiao poured power into the sword and said coldly, "This is called not repenting even in death." Whoosh! The sharp sword cut through the void and mercilessly slashed at Lin Haoyan. Based on the previous patriarch's death, He basically had no chance of dodging. Even if he used all kinds of treasures, they would all be crushed together. However, when the sword energy tore through the patriarch's body, it disappeared instantly like an afterimage. Jun Changshao frowned and said, "Did he use a divine ability to escape?" Bam! Bam! At the same time, the remaining two patriarch also used some kind of divine ability and disappeared into thin air, leaving only smoke that resembled the exhaust of a car. A monk can run away, but can the temple run away? Jun Changshao put the sword into the space and said coldly, "After the battlefield is cleaned up, I will personally visit." Pfft. After saying that, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Whoosh whoosh. A breeze blew, and his green hair fell off, and his head became shiny again. Ha ha ha. The system said, "Overuse relapse." Jun Changshao took out the magically modified hair growth agent, squeezed out a ball of it, and rubbed his head carelessly. He ordered, "Kill the rest, don't let a single one escape." Yes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The disciples' killing intent rose, and they immediately rushed over to fight, with the Vermilion Bird King restraining them from the sky. The immortal sect martial artists, who had lost their general, were destined to be wiped out. They're finally here. Strange, why is the sect of all time still here? After an hour, more and more non-affiliated martial artists arrived at the scene. Many of them were puzzled when they saw that the strongest sect of all time's plaque was still intact. "You're too late." The one who came first gradually recovered from the shock and said, "The sect of all times has already wiped out all the people from the 10 great immortal sects." "I see. What? The 10 great immortal sects were wiped out by the sect of all times?" This day was destined to be an extraordinary day. This day was destined to be an eternal day. However, the disciples of the sect of all times who had wiped out all the martial artists from the 10 great immortal sects were now collecting the scattered space rings on the immortal mountain. Patriarch. In the main hall of the sect, Li Qingyang walked over and said, "According to the statistics, we lost more than 600 new fighter jets, 10,000 Moang soldiers, and one disciple was injured." "Who was injured?" "Jingji." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "It's too embarrassing for him to be the only one injured. After he recovers, follow Mao Xiaodao and clean the toilets for 10 days. "Yes." Li Qingyang left and went to the medical hall. Jingji, who was full of energy, noticed that her senior brother was coming. She quickly lay on the bed and pretended to be weak. "Although I'm dead, I'm still a disciple of the sect of all times." "Junior brother Jing," Li Qingyang said, "the patriarch ordered you to follow junior brother Mao and clean the toilets for 10 days after you've recovered." "Huh." Jingji immediately stood up and howled, "Why? Are you okay?" "I can't." Jingji clutched her chest and said in pain, "My head hurts." "Maybe my soul was hurt after the mech exploded," Li Qingyang roared. "What does your chest have to do with your head hurting?" "It suddenly changed." "In my opinion, junior brother is deliberately lying about his injury. If we send him to the discipline hall, he will face the wall for at least a month." Swoosh. Jingji jumped up from the bed and performed a set of military boxing. She said, "It suddenly doesn't hurt anymore." Chapter 1659. What happened in the sect of all times swept through the upper realm like a storm the next day. Many cities set up projection screens, playing the scene of the battle between the sect of all times and the 10 immortal sects. For a moment, all the martial artists were dumbfounded. The Vermilion Bird King. When the huge bird beast covered in flames appeared on the screen, it immediately set off another round of exclamations. Speaking of which, from the perspective of the camera, it should be in the sect of all times. Who recorded it? Hehe. In the study, Li Tiantian placed a photo on the table and grinned. Not only did I use a formation to capture the entire process of the battle, but I also took the opportunity to take a picture of the patriarch killing the peak of the truth-seeking realm. Needless to say, this guy was very professional. In the photo, Go Sheng was holding the immortal sword of perfection, with all kinds of special effects. He looked very imposing at first glance. Not bad. Jun Changshao patted him on the shoulder and said, Jingji, that kid deliberately faked his injury. When the new number 66 battle armor is made, you'll be in charge of operating it. Li Tiantian was overjoyed and immediately declared loudly, I won't let the patriarch down. He had been thinking about the mech for a long time, and today, he finally got his wish. However, when the news reached Jingji's ears, she immediately collapsed on the bed like mud, wailing in her heart. Someone must be jealous of my high appearance rate. So they said something bad in front of the patriarch. The battle scene was repeatedly played in the major cities of the upper realm. If one had to use a word to describe the current world, it would be exploding. As the authority of the upper realm, the 10 immortal sects sent out 100,000 elites, but they did not return. This was definitely shocking. 7 out of the 10 patriarch died. This is too terrifying. Something that I didn't even dare to dream of actually happened yesterday. It's a pity that I couldn't witness it with my own eyes. It's one of the biggest regrets of my life. I'm afraid the sect of all times is going to go to heaven in this battle. Please remove the word terrifying, because it's already going to heaven. What were the 10 immortal sects? The bosses of the upper realm, the supreme existences who meant what they said. The elites they sent out were all defeated by the myriad ancient immortal mountains. In the current world, what other powers could fight against them? If a poll was held right now to determine who was the strongest sect in the upper realm, the martial artists who had seen the video would definitely vote for the sect of all times without hesitation. No one questioned him. There was nothing wrong with it. Ding! The host has repelled the invading 10 major immortal sects and caused a stir in the upper realm. The host is rewarded with 10,000 reputation points. As the news spread, Jun Changshao, who was in the sect of all times, heard a notification. No way. I'm about to destroy the 10 great immortal sects, and I'm only rewarded with 10,000. From a gaming point of view, the immortal sect was the final boss level in the upper realm. Go Sheng had killed 7 patriarchs and 100,000 elites. It was unreasonable to give him such a small amount of reputation points. How much do you want? At least 100 million, and there's no discount. Go to sleep. It can be realized in your dreams. Although Jun Changshao was depressed, he could only accept this reality. Then he went to the main hall, gathered all the higher-ups and said, Is everyone ready? Ready. The black and white Rakshasas and the others said in unison. Okay. Jun Changshao slapped the armrest and said, 3 days later, follow me to the high heaven immortal sect. As the saying goes, it is impolite not to reciprocate. You came to invade the sect of all times, so I will definitely go to your house as a guest and taste your tea to see if it's delicious. Do you want to taste the tea? The system said. You're just greedy for their magnetite. It was strange. With the 10 major immortal sects' current losses, they should be chasing after the victory. Why did Jun Changshao have to wait 3 days? There were 2 reasons. First, he needed to give the martial artists in the upper realm time to go to the high heaven immortal sect as soon as possible to watch the show. In fact, it was Jun Changshao who ordered the battle videos to be spread to all the cities. The purpose was to make the sect famous. From the reputation points reward, it was obvious that the effect was good. This time, they were going to the 10 major immortal sects as a guest. At least they could be witnesses when the time came. Perhaps it would help to complete the main mission. The second reason was more serious. Although no disciples were killed in the battle with the 10 major immortal sects, thousands of Moang tribe soldiers were injured and killed. Therefore, they had to be given a grand funeral to comfort their souls in heaven. The next day, in the mountain forest under a drizzle, Jun Changshao, dressed in black, stood in an open space. There were tombstones in front of him, where the Moang tribe soldiers who died in the battle for the sect of all times were buried. The higher-ups and disciples of the sect of all times were lined up neatly behind him, their faces solemn. Salute! Swoosh! Swoosh! Everyone in the sect of all times gave a high-level military salute. Jun Changshao squatted down and put one hand on the tombstone. He looked solemn and said, Although you are nameless, you died because of the sect of all times. I will remember this, and repay you with the blood of the 10 major immortal sects. The last few words were full of killing intent. The Moang tribe soldiers did not join the sect, but that did not stop Jun Changshao from treating them as family. Therefore, the immortal sects must be responsible for those who died in the previous battle. On this day, the rain only stopped late at night. The entire sect was shrouded in a faint sadness. Husband, are you sure you want to cause trouble for the 10 major immortal sects? In the study, Rose of Flowers asked as she poured tea. Jun Changshao clasped his hands together and said with a cold look, I want to destroy these sections. When the first fleet of the astral spirit realm invaded, the 10 major immortal sects sent out a lot of elders, and their strength seemed to be no weaker than your father. If we go to them, we will definitely alarm them, Rose of Flowers said. Although 100,000 elites were destroyed and 7 patriarchs were killed, the threat was not completely removed, because the 10 major immortal sects still had old antiques in seclusion. I know, Jun Changshao said. That's why we have to take the initiative to attack. At least we don't have to worry about them attacking us first. I understand, Rose of Flowers said in realization. Husband, you want to drag the battlefield to their doorstep. That's right. Jun Changshao touched his shiny head and said, it's a little suffocating to be on the defensive all the time. We have to take the initiative. Indeed, the other party attacking and the other party attacking were two completely different things. Why did you take off your hair again? Were you wearing a wig before? I think it looks good like this. There's no need to deliberately hide it. That's not right. Jun Changshao finally came to his senses and roared. It's already the middle of the night. Why are you still in my room? P.S. I can't take it anymore. My brain is about to explode. Tomorrow I may, give me some monthly votes. Chapter 1660. While Jun Changshao was paying respects to the dead Moang clan soldiers, the Drizzle Hall was busy distributing flyers. In just a day, the news of the Sect of All Time's visit to the Ling Tian Celestial Sect had spread throughout the upper realm. It had undoubtedly become a hot topic. The 10 major celestial sects have lost so many elites. It's obvious that Jun Patriarch is planning to trample them under his feet. Many martial artists knew that the so-called visit was just a facade. The real intention was to destroy the sect. Without yesterday's incident, many people would have thought that Jun Changshao was out of his mind. However, they thought it was normal now. After all, he had absolute strength. It was only natural for him to return the favor. However, someone said worriedly, the Ling Tian Celestial Sect has a senior powerhouse who's in closed-door cultivation. I'm afraid Jun Patriarch won't be able to gain anything by visiting them. The 10 major celestial sects had their own supreme elders. Although they were usually in closed-door cultivation, they would definitely not stand by and watch if the sect's safety was at stake. Based on the light screen, Jun Patriarch killed the patriarch of the 10 major celestial sects easily. He might not be weaker than an old monster who's in closed-door cultivation all year round. These are not for us to worry about. The most important thing now is to go and watch the show. I'm afraid there won't be any seats left if we're late. Yes. Martial artists from various cities made their way to the Ling Tian Celestial Sect one after another. They did not witness the battle yesterday. Now that the Sect of All Times had taken the initiative to visit the Ling Tian Celestial Sect, they could not miss it no matter what. Naturally, many martial artists supported Jun Changshao from the bottom of their hearts. After all, this man had the courage to challenge authority and was about to break it. He deserved everyone's respect. Sect of All Times. Li Luochio reported. The news has been spread. Many forces and sectless cultivators are heading to the Ling Tian Celestial Sect now. All right. Jun Changshao nodded and asked, have you informed Master and Senior Qi? Yes. Li Luochio said. They should set off now. Jun Changshao thought about it for a moment before he said, inform the major clans to go and join in the fun. Yes. Li Luochio hurriedly retreated. Jun Changshao lazily leaned against the back of the chair and said, I want to rub your high and mighty immortal sects on the ground in front of everyone. East Sea, the island that carried the teleportation array. Buzz, buzz. The members of the array formation hall, led by the old Taishian, flew out and stopped at the area where the ancestral land of the stone statue clan was sealed. They began to penetrate the internal structure and conduct a comprehensive analysis and decryption. Reality proved that without the help of the two great clans, Jun Changshao still had the strength to fight against the 10 great immortal sects. Therefore, he naturally had to unseal it now. Buzz! The invisible sealing formation gradually appeared. Shangguan Xinyao retrieved her soul and said with a smile, "Grand Elder, I found a flaw." She had been studying mechas with the old man from Taishian recently, especially after coming into contact with the more complicated formation system of the astral spirit world. Her strength had improved by leaps and bounds, and she had even surpassed Zhen Dijuan in some aspects. If nothing went wrong, she would be the next hall master of the array formation hall. Speaking of which, it had to be mentioned that the current hall masters of the sect of all times were older, such as Elder Wei of the Medicine Hall, Zhen Dijuan of the Array Formation Hall, and Fan Yezi of the Smithing Hall. They would definitely retire in the future and let the younger generation take over their positions. If a sect wanted to prosper, it could not do without the injection of new blood. It was normal for there to be some changes in the sect of all times in the future. This was especially true for Elder Wei. He had expressed to Jun Changshao many times that he wanted to retire. Over the years, the cultivation of herbs had provided logistical support for the sect of all times, allowing them to slowly rise from insignificance. Elder Wei had also done his best in cultivating talents. Sun Bukong and the other young disciples were not only proficient in herbs, but also in medicine. It would not be a problem for them to take over the medicine hall. Jun Changshao was actually quite concerned about this problem. He knew that the future of the sect depended on the young people. It was not a bad thing to let them take up the responsibility early. Elder Wei, Jun Changshao replied, "There's no rush. Take it slow." He already had the idea of letting the younger generation take over the position of hall master, but it was not the right time yet. Therefore, he needed some time to completely forget about it. Only when the readers reminded him would he implement it. A few hours later, the sealing formation of the stone statue tribe was penetrated until it was full of holes. In the end, it could not hold on any longer and was destroyed. "Girl," the Taishian elder asked, "have you memorized it?" Yes. The 10 great celestial sects had gathered so much manpower and resources to set up the sealing formation in a few months. Not only was it easily broken by the sect of all times, even the complete layout was engraved in Shangguan Xinyao's heart. This fully explained that one could fight against the heavens and the earth, but not against cheats. "Let's go," the Taishian elder ordered. "Go and remove the seal of the dragon tribe." With the previous experience, it only took a short 4 hours to break the second sealing formation. The 10 great celestial sects had worked so hard to create it over the past few months, but it was broken so easily in a few hours. Outside, because the sect of all times had spread the news in advance, martial artists from all over the world were heading to the Lingtian celestial sect as soon as possible. The number of people was hard to estimate. Cluck cluck cluck. The next day, early in the morning, a rooster with the bloodline of the vermilion bird raised its head and crowed, waking the entire sect from their sleep. Swoosh, swoosh. Disciples in brand new school uniforms walked out of their rooms and gathered at the training field on the main peak. Ryu Sinan, Gong Sun Ho, and the other higher-ups were already in place. Their expressions were unusually serious, and the idiotic atmosphere of the sect was gone. Thud. Jun Changshao walked out of the main hall. He was dressed in white today, and his black hair danced in the wind. He looked majestic and extraordinary. "Husband, why are you wearing a wig again?" Rows of Flowers muttered in her heart. Jun Changshao stood in front of the main hall with his hands on his hips. He looked at the high-ranking disciples and said loudly, "Disciples, listen up. Follow me. Heaven. Celestial. Sect. Yes. Whoosh. Whoosh. Whoosh." On this day, Tens of thousands of disciples of the Sect of All Times flew out of the Sect of All Times with their colorful wings. Many Diablo mechas and tall Moang soldiers followed closely behind. Senior brother, everyone is leaving. Mao Xiaodao looked envious at the entrance of the outhouse. Don't just stand there, Jingji said impatiently. Hurry up and clean the place. Because he had faked his injury, he had been stripped of his mecha pilot status, and could only follow his junior in cleaning up the house. However, he had always kept the mecha operations manual that he had written in his arms. He firmly believed that one day, he would be able to operate a mecha again and bring glory to the sect. At the Lingtian Celestial Sect, Lin Haoyan sat at the head of the table. His eyes were burning with anger. The outside world was spreading the news that the Sect of All Times was coming to visit, and he had naturally heard about it. Patriarch, an elder said worriedly. What should we do? What else can we do? Asked the Grand Elder. Lin Haoyan used a secret escape technique to escape. He looked normal now, but his internal body had suffered a backlash, and his strength was not as strong as before. Therefore, if Jun Changshao came to find trouble, they could only rely on the remaining elders of the sect. Patriarch. At this time, a disciple rushed in and said, The Sect of All Times is here. Lin Haoyan. Suddenly a voice boomed from outside. Get your ass out here. Chapter 1661. Whether a sect was strong or not. One could tell by looking at its territory. For example, as one of the absolute rulers of the upper realm, the mountain where the Lingtian immortal sect was located was majestic like a fairyland. Even the air was filled with extremely strong heaven and earth attributes. To be honest, Jun Changshao was jealous. With such good feng shui, even if he did not cultivate, he would definitely become stronger just by breathing every day. No, I have to modify the Aeon Immortal Mountain when I go back. Although the Lingtian Immortal Sect's mountain was good, it was only suitable for visiting and not for taking over. Therefore, Jun Changshao wanted to build his own territory with his own hands. In fact, throughout the rise of the Sect of All Times, although they had bullied many sects and occupied many resources, their territory was still the Iron Bone Mountain. They did not change it because of a better feng shui. This was homesickness. This was passion. Li Qingyang was also shocked by the Lingtian Immortal Sect's mountain. He thought to himself, the sect still needs to be improved in many ways. In an instant, non-repetitive building blueprints appeared in his mind. Is this Jun Patriarch? Isn't he bald? Why does he have hair? He has an imposing appearance and looks handsome. Outside the Lingtian Immortal Sect's territory, millions of onlookers gathered to watch the show. They whispered about Jun Changshao's appearance. Of course, they also admired him for asking the patriarch of the Immortal Sect to come out as soon as he flew over on the warship. Too arrogant, too awesome. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the sound of wind breaking came from the distant sky. Disciple, I'm here. Junrin Tonggu flew over with Masato Kitano and the other relatives and friends. Then, they hovered on the right side of the warship with smiles on their faces. The 10 great immortal sects were targeting the Sect of All Times. They went to support them with the determination to fall out with them, and even die on the battlefield. So their expressions were very serious. Now that they knew about Jun Changshao's strength, they were naturally calm. Whoosh, whoosh. Another gust of wind blew from the sky. The experts of the stone statue race, led by the 3 ministers and 9 ministers, arrived soon after. They hovered on the left side of the warship and saluted Jun Changshao in unison. Greetings, Patriarch. Patriarch? Jun Patriarch is the patriarch of the stone statue tribe? All the martial artists were dumbfounded. When the star spirit world invaded for the second time, although many ordinary warriors saw the stone statue clan, they did not know what relationship they had with Jun Changshao. Junrin Tonggu and Masato Kitano had heard about it in advance, but when they saw the 3 chancellors and 9 ministers, who were stronger than them, standing respectfully at the side, they couldn't remain calm. Disciple, you are giving me too much face. At this moment, Junrin Tonggu held his head high and puffed out his chest. His eyes were filled with pride. He did not look like someone who had jumped out of the three realms, and was not bound by the five elements as described by Jun Changshao. Roar suddenly, a deafening dragon roar resounded through the sky, startling everyone to raise their heads. They saw dozens of extraordinarily mighty giant dragon beasts flying over, as if they were riding on clouds and mist. Dragon tribe. Everyone was even more shocked. Wait a minute. Could the young man standing on the dragon beast in gorgeous clothes and a crown be the dragon emperor? Disciple Long Outyin. Little Long Long led everyone to hover in front of the warship. He cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, Patriarch." The dozens of upper echelons of the dragon tribe, who had transformed into their true forms, lowered their heads with great respect in their eyes. The upper echelons of the two clans had arrived one after another. One called him Patriarch, and the other called himself Disciple. This made the onlookers even more shocked. There was more. Swish, swish. At this moment, streams of light flew over from all over the world. From the aura they emitted, it was obvious that they were not humans. Greetings, Jun Patriarch, Patriarch of the Thunder Rhombus tribe. Greetings, Jun Patriarch, Patriarch of the Ice Phoenix tribe. Patriarch of the Divine Walker tribe. When the patriarchs of the various clans flew over with their upper echelons and bowed to Jun Changshao on the ancient warship, the millions of martial artists were dumbfounded. What was the meaning of style? This was it. Smack. Li Tian, who was piloting Mecha number 66, took the opportunity to take out his camera. He used the wide-angle lens to capture the scene of the various clans bowing to the patriarch. Swish, swish. At this moment, a few streams of light flew out from the Lingtian immortal sect. The person in the lead was Lin Haoyan. When he saw Jun Changshao standing on the warship, he was instantly enraged. Fuck. Why are all the clans here? If he had a rage value on his head, it would have risen to the top when he came out, but quickly fell back to the bottom when he saw the experts of the various clans. Patriarch Lin. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, "As the saying goes, courtesy demands reciprocity. Since the Lingtian immortal sect has visited the sect of all times, I naturally have to return the favor." Lin Haoyan's expression was extremely ugly. Almost all the clans were gathered here. This return visit was too big. It had to be. The 10 major celestial sects sent 100,000 elites to the sect of all times. If I don't return the favor with a bigger scene, I'll definitely be criticized by the readers. Jun Patriarch, Lin Haoyan said in a low voice. Do you have to make things irreversible? Haha. Jungo Leftover smiled politely and awkwardly. Jimren Tonggu was more straightforward. He looked at Lin Haoyan with a look of disdain. If it were not for his status, he would have spat on the spot. When the 10 major celestial sects came to attack my disciple's sect, why didn't you consider making things irreversible? Patriarch Lin. Jun Changshao flipped his hair and said with a smile. After all, we're all sections. We'll see each other often in the upper realm. I don't want to make things too ugly. How about this? Hand over all the martial arts resources of your sect, and I'll leave immediately. Bah. The system said, you're still greedy for other people's resources. At this point, the Lingtian celestial sect could no longer compete with the sect of all times. The best outcome was to pay and admit their mistake. However, Lin Haoyan was unhappy when he heard that they had to hand over all their resources. Resources were very important to a sect. Handing them all over was equivalent to destroying their own martial arts. Jun Patriarch. Lin Haoyan said, the Lingtian celestial sect is willing to compensate, but we can't hand over all our resources. There were millions of martial artists present. If they said that they were willing to compensate, they were really admitting defeat. However, since they were going to admit defeat, they had to show some backbone. At the very least, they had to bargain and not be taken advantage of. Using all our resources to guarantee that the Lingtian celestial sect will not be removed from the upper realm. This deal is worth it, right? Jun Changshao said. Everyone present understood. Jun Patriarch's meaning was simple. If they handed over all their resources, the sect could continue to exist. If they did not, they would be removed from the upper realm. How domineering. All the martial artists thought to themselves. The celestial sect, which had a long history in the upper realm, was like a supreme god. Now that someone had threatened them so blatantly, it was definitely something that they could not even dream of. Is there no room for negotiation? Lin Haoyan said with difficulty. It was very painful to beg for mercy in front of everyone. However, he had to say it because he could not allow the celestial sect's foundation to be destroyed in his own hands. No. Jun Changxiao's answer was also very decisive. In fact, he had already given them a way out. Previously, he had sent 100,000 elites to annihilate the Lingtian celestial sect. Lin Haoyan's expression changed unpredictably. There was struggle, pain, and anger in his eyes. In the end, he only said one word. Fine. Fine, my ass. Suddenly, a deep and old voice resonated from the celestial sect. With me here, no one can extort the Lingtian celestial sect. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. As soon as the voice fell, waves of air surged toward them. The heaven and earth attribute in the surroundings seemed to be forcefully gathered by some unquestionable force. Then, it quickly formed a huge palm print that carried a vast might above the ancient warship. Oh no! Zhenren Tonggu's expression changed drastically. Protect the patriarch. The 3 chancellors and 9 ministers reacted quickly. They immediately flew up and unleashed the power of the stone statues to form layers of defense. Stand down. Jun Changxiao's voice resonated from the warship. I'll meet him. Chapter 1662. Boom. An earth-shattering explosion suddenly came from outside the Lingtian immortal sect. Violent shockwaves roared as the space gradually distorted and collapsed. The ancient warship at the edge of the storm was unaffected because the 3 chancellors and 9 ministers had gathered the power of the stone statues to form an impenetrable wall that covered a wide area. Bam! 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 The shockwaves crazily attacked the barrier. Zhenren Tonggu, Masato Kitano, and the other itinerant cultivators hid behind the barrier. Their expressions changed again and again. If there were no stone statue tribe powerhouses, they would be affected by this power. At best, they would vomit blood and be injured. At worst, they would die. The millions of martial artists who were watching the show were unlucky. They did not expect someone to suddenly fly out of the Lingtian immortal sect and gather a terrifying palm print at lightning speed. Therefore, when the shockwaves spread out, they did not have time to retreat at all. They were all affected. Spurt, spurt. Blood sprayed wildly on the ground. When the shockwaves gradually weakened, the martial artists who were standing outside the Lingtian immortal sect's territory were all sent flying for more than 10 miles. There were many corpses lying on the ground. This was the result of watching the show. Of course, the strength of the attack was too high. If it were an ordinary truth-seeking stage cultivator, the shockwaves would not spread so far even if they were badly injured. This is too terrifying. What kind of power is this? The martial artists who were sent flying suppressed the boiling blood in their bodies and tried to look at the crack in the sky. Although the shockwaves killed many low-level martial artists, it was still difficult to suppress the curiosity of most people. Therefore, they had to continue watching the show. Moreover, they were already thousands of miles away from the battlefield. If they were affected again, then they could only accept their fate. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the area where the space collapsed, the wind whistled like blades. A majestic old man about 70 years old gradually appeared. His eyes were deep and sharp, and his skinny palms were surrounded by extremely pure heaven and earth profundity. He was the Grand Elder of the Lingtian immortal sect, Bo Yazi. This person stood proudly in the shattered space. His every move revealed the demeanor of a powerhouse. He was not someone the patriarch of the 10 major celestial sects could compare to. Half step. No, he's still not as strong as the old patriarch. The 3 chancellors and 9 ministers quickly made this judgment based on the aura released by the old man. That wasn't the main point. The main point was the patriarch all right? Everyone released their spiritual senses and soon found Jun Changxiao in the sunken area on the ground. He slowly flew out of the deep pit. The armor on his body was shining, and the corner of his mouth raised into a charming smile. Bo Yazi frowned slightly. The move he used just now was the top martial art of the sect, the Ling Tian crushing seal technique. Furthermore, he had already comprehended it to the extreme, so it was truly inconceivable for him to come out unscathed after a palm strike. No wonder, Bo Yazi thought to himself, to be able to kill 7 patriarch. Although his strength was not as strong as Gongsun Ruoli's, he was very close to the half-step level. Peak-seeking realm cultivators like Jimren Tonggu and Masato Kitano were no match for him. Although Jun Changshao didn't manage to resist the palm strike just now, and was sent flying out of the warship, he was still unscathed. Judging from the fact that he was almost at the peak of the half-step level, everyone's success couldn't be separated from hard work and effort, just like Go Sheng's success couldn't be separated from the modification of his level. In fact, when the first fleet of the Star Spirit Realm invaded, Bo Yazi had participated in the battle. At that time, Jun Changshao wasn't qualified to participate in a battle of this level, so from afar, he only felt that the other party was surrounded by unfathomable heaven and earth attributes, making it difficult to see his true appearance. But now, not only could he see clearly, but he could also count the number of nose hairs that were exposed. People who were in seclusion all year round would definitely neglect to wash up. Their hands and feet were too long, and their beard was unshaven. It was normal for their hair to be messy. Slowly flying up and stopping in the sky, Jun Changshao gently patted the dust off his shoulder and said, "I've given the Ling Tian Immortal Sect a way out. Since you don't want to cooperate then." The ultimate immortal sword appeared out of thin air, and its eyes flashed with strong killing intent. "Disappear from the upper realm." "Kid," Bo Yazi said coldly, "the Ling Tian Immortal Sect has been in the upper realm for hundreds of thousands of years. How can a newly risen sect like you destroy us?" "Grand Elder," Lin Haoyan wanted to say something but stopped. If the remaining powerhouse of the older generation did not come out, he would definitely choose to pay the compensation. After all, he was injured from using his divine ability, and the sect's elites had suffered heavy casualties. They could not afford to suffer anymore. "Haoyan." Bo Yazi stood with his hands behind his back and said proudly, "Since the establishment of the Ling Tian Immortal Sect until now, we're above all living things. We've relied on our strength. If you use resources in exchange for an ignoble existence today, how can you face your ancestors in the underworld?" This sentence contained majesty and penetrated Lin Haoyan's mind, causing his originally painful and conflicted gaze to instantly become resolute. "Grand Elder." "I'd rather die in glory than live in dishonor," Bo Yazi said. "This is the person of the Ling Tian Immortal Sect. This is the spirit of the Ling Tian Immortal Sect." "Damn it!" Jun Changshao cursed in his heart. This guy made it sound so beautiful, as if he was the villain. It was still the same sentence. There was no right or wrong between the two sections. They had different goals. As long as it did not affect the innocent, it did not matter who died or who died. This was because in a world where the strong preyed on the weak, the strong preyed on the weak. "All right." Jun Changshao raised his sword and said calmly, "I'll send you all to meet your ancestors in the underworld." Whoosh! The scorching fire soul energy enveloped the sword, and the space was quickly distorted by the heat. Bo Yazi understood that this person's strength could not be underestimated, since he did not injure him in the slightest. Therefore, the true spirit energy and heaven and earth profundity in his body erupted wildly, and his gaze became even more serious. "Come," Jun Changshao shouted, "let's fight." Bo Yazi said, "If I'm lucky enough to win, the grudge between our sects will be written off. How about that?" "I'm sorry." Jun Changshao stood up with his sword and said, "You can't win. It was here. The patriarch of the sect of all times vs the supreme elder of the high heaven celestial sect. As of now, the battle between the two should be considered the top martial arts competition in the upper realm." Whoosh! The monstrous flaming sword chi cut through the void and rushed over like a roaring fire dragon. Bo Yazi's expression turned serious. His skinny hands waved in the void, and layers of heaven and earth attributes stirred up the layers of space, forming an extremely powerful energy wave. He shouted, "Destruction of all things. Ka ka ka. Ka 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 ka." It was used by a top expert who was about to reach the half-step stage. The energy wave that gathered the destructive energy wave rushed over quickly and finally collided with the flaming sword chi, producing a dazzling light and a deafening explosion. Fortunately, the ancient warship retreated far away in time, and the violent aftershocks did not disturb them. Boom, however, in the area where the space was distorted and the flames spread, a muffled sound was suddenly heard. Bo Yazi was blasted out like a cannonball, and then he landed at a low altitude in an extremely sorry state. When they saw his face clearly, there was an obvious fist mark on the right side of his face. He was beaten up. Junrin Tonggu and Masato Katana were stunned. Whoosh! At this moment, a red stream of light rushed out from the energy explosion area and approached Bo Yazi. It instantly launched a dazzling attack. Every time it attacked, it would spew out scorching flames and bring about the sound of fists hitting flesh. "Tonggu," Masato Katano said in disbelief. "Your disciple's speed is so fast. I can't see him clearly at all." Junrin Tonggu was stunned. The speed of his attacks and the strength of his aura were even stronger than when he was supported by the rows of flowers and his bloodline. Could it be that he had comprehended something, and his strength had greatly increased? Good tea. Suddenly, there was a sound of praise from the sky. Everyone looked up and saw Jun Changshao standing in the sky, holding a cup of tea in his hand and sipping it carefully. Why was he here? Who was fighting with the supreme elder of the Ling Tian celestial sect? Boom! On the other side there was a shocking sound. Bo Yazi staggered and fell to the ground, and he only managed to stabilize himself after taking dozens of steps back. The supreme elder of the Ling Tian celestial sect? In the sky, a red-haired man in his 20s gradually walked out of the scorching flames. He said with disdain, "Compared to the Dragon Emperor of the past, he's still a far cry." Who? The Vermilion Bird King. Jun Changshao, who was standing in the sky, took another sip of tea and said calmly, "With a powerful bodyguard, why would I need to fight personally?" Fuck. The system roared. The content is seriously inconsistent with the chapter title. Chapter 1663. Boom! Boom! Outside the Ling Tian Immortal Sect, explosions and surging air waves filled the air. All kinds of special effects were so strong that it was hard to open one's eyes. The supreme elder of the Ling Tian Immortal Sect was in for a tragedy. In a short time, he was beaten by the Vermilion Bird King until he fell to the ground in a sorry state. His arm was in pain, and his fingers were trembling nonstop. "I thought it was very powerful." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "It turns out that it's so weak." The corner of Junrin Tonggu's mouth twitched slightly. "My disciple, it's not that that guy is weak, it's that your contract beast is too strong." This was undeniable. After all, hundreds of thousands of years ago, the Vermilion Bird King was already on par with the previous Dragon Emperor of the dragon race. After the Nirvana rebirth, it was even more insightful. As of now, other than the mysterious storyteller, the only one who could fight it was Gongsun Ruoli, who had just left not long ago. What a joke. If Gosheng was not confident, why would he dare to fight in other people's territory? Damn it! Bo Yazi's eyes flashed with anger. That guy said that he would fight with him, but in the end, he found someone else to fight for him. If he had more contact with Jun Changshao, he would realize that this kind of shameless behavior was very normal. Of course, Gosheng had his reasons too. The main responsibility of a sect's leader was to focus on developing the sect. If he had to fight personally, wouldn't his high-level disciples and contract beasts be useless? To put it bluntly, he was just a boss who only needed to count the money and leave the rest to his employees. Ah, Bo Yazi roared, and his combat strength seemed to have increased instantly. He then opened his skinny hands, and streams of light flew out from his palms like cannonballs, blasting toward the Vermilion Bird King. Behind the Vermilion Bird King, beautiful flaming wings appeared out of thin air and quickly covered its entire body, forming an absolute defense. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. The streams of light bombarded mercilessly, and the energy waves were even stronger. However, after a series of attacks, the Vermilion Bird King spread its wings and did not suffer any damage at all. Boyazi felt powerless. As soon as the Vermilion Bird King appeared, he realized that the opponent's strength was far above his own. Unless a miracle happened, it would be impossible to fight it. Swoosh. While he was thinking, the Vermilion Bird King closed in on him. He lightly raised 2 fingers, and pure and scorching energy quickly condensed. He said indifferently, "It's over." Boom! The flickering energy suddenly exploded, producing an extremely strong impact. Although Boyazi had already made defensive preparations, he was still sent flying. He slid on the ground for several thousand feet before he could stop with great difficulty. Everywhere he passed, deep and long trenches were torn open. Wow! He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face paled. The outcome has been decided. Jumren Tongu and the other rogue cultivators came to a conclusion. The Vermilion Bird King's figure flashed and squatted in front of Boyazi. Flames gathered in its fists as it unleashed a barrage of attacks. Boom boom boom. Boom 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 boom. An unbearable scene of brutality appeared. Even the camera couldn't see it. They could only quietly move to the area of the collapsed space. Boom! The Vermilion Bird King unleashed another heavy punch before standing up. Under its feet, Boyazi had already been beaten into a mosaic. At this point, the battle between the patriarch of the sect of all times and the supreme elder of the Ling Tian celestial sect had ended. The winner was Jun Changshao. Some people might not agree, but in fact, he had a contract with the Vermilion Bird King. Winning naturally represented the master. Not convinced? Fine, if you're so capable, capture a powerful demon beast to fight. Supreme Elder. Lin Haoyan stood there in a daze. Boyazi was the strongest person in the Ling Tian celestial sect. Now that he was beaten so badly, it was equivalent to the sky collapsing and his mental support collapsing. Sigh. Jun Changshao floated down, shook his head and said, "If we paid the compensation in the beginning, would we have ended up like this?" Although Boyazi was severely injured, he could still think. He tried to gather his strength and said weakly, Ling Tian. Celestial sect never." Boom! Jun Changshao directly lifted his foot and stepped on his face. Jun Changshao. Boyazi's eyes were spitting fire. He clenched his fists tightly, but he still forced himself to change his tone. "Pay the compensation. We'll pay the compensation." At this point there was no other way. Jun Changshao's foot was still on Boyazi's face. He was trampling on the dignity of an celestial sect's supreme elder in public. "I'm sorry. I gave you a chance. Since you didn't grasp it, there won't be a second chance. Disciples, listen up." Jun Changshao stepped on Boyazi and said coldly, "Flatten the Ling Tian celestial sect." "Yes." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The upper echelons and core disciples on the ancient warship flew out. Behind them, the Diablo fighters were activated and charged toward the Ling Tian celestial sect. Jun Changshao. Lin Haoyan shouted angrily, "How dare you? Puchi!" As soon as he finished speaking, a sharp sword light slashed across his neck. His pupil shrank rapidly. When his mind was disconnected from his body, a cold voice rang in his ears. "There's nothing in this world that I, Jun Changshao, don't dare to do." "You." Lin Haoyan wanted to speak, but he could not muster the strength to do so. In the end, he could only fall to the ground with anger and unwillingness. 8 of the 10 great celestial sects patriarch were dead. Patriarch. The upper echelons and disciples of the Ling Tian celestial sect shouted in grief. Boom! At this moment, a loud explosion shook the heavens and earth. The sect's protective array outside the sect was directly blasted open. The space was distorted and shattered. Everyone looked up in shock. In the sky, the huge Eternal slowly appeared. The hatch on its abdomen opened, and a cannon that was a combination of array and technology extended very long. Faint white smoke was left behind at the cannon's muzzle. It was obvious that this was the thing that had just blasted the Sect's protective array. Patriarch Shengguan Xinyao, who was in the cockpit, sent a voice transmission. The array has been broken. Jun Changshao felt the pinch. Although the cannon blasted open the Ling Tian Celestial Sect's protective array, the price of such a high explosion was hundreds of thousands of Dao stones. The system said, "Take down this sect, and everything inside will be at your fingertips. What's there to feel the pinch for?" That's right. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. The array was blasted open, and the disciples of the sect of all times surged in like a wave. Although the Ling Tian Celestial Sect wanted to resist and demonstrate what the spirit of a sect was, most of their elites had died in the Aeon Celestial Mountain. The remaining disciples could not resist at all. Those who resist die. Those who disarm live. The black and white Rakshasa led a large group of disciples into the main peak. However, they did not kill anyone in sight. Instead, they gave them a chance to live. 2 hours later, the main hall that stood at the peak of the mountain collapsed before everyone's eyes. It's over. The Celestial Sect has been destroyed. The main hall that represented glory and the Celestial Sect had been reduced to ashes. The cultivators who witnessed this were shocked to an indescribable extent. Immediately, Jun Changshao, who was hovering above the Ling Tian Celestial Sect, announced like a god, "The Ling Tian Celestial Sect will be removed from the upper realm." One of the 10 great celestial sects had been destroyed. Chapter 1664. The Patriarch was killed, and the sect was destroyed. The Lingtian Celestial Sect that ruled the upper realm 100,000 years ago was finally removed from the upper realm. Nearly 50,000 disciples were still alive. They squatted on the ground and hugged their heads. Although their eyes were filled with grief and anger, they could only obediently become captives. Ding Xingwang suggested to kill them all to prevent future trouble, but Jun Changshao decided to let them live because the heavens cared for all living things. In fact, the higher-ups and elites of the Lingtian Celestial Sect were all killed, and the remaining small fries were no longer a threat. Letting them live would earn them a good reputation, but killing them would only increase their reputation. Jun Patriarch is righteous. If this was the 10 major celestial sects, I'm afraid they wouldn't be so merciful. Seeing the disciples of the Lingtian Celestial Sect walk down the mountain dejectedly, the cultivators immediately felt respect in their hearts. However, they would never have thought that Jun Changshao was standing in the underground treasury at this moment. He squatted on the ground and covered his face with one hand, laughing like a villain. "Oh my God!" Su Xiaoma walked in and saw the mountains of gold and silver in the huge basement, as well as various martial arts resources. His expression gradually stiffened, and he even felt a little dizzy. The Lingtian Celestial Sect, one of the leaders of the upper realm, one could see how deep their foundation was just by looking at the treasury. Take them all. Yes. The disciples began to get busy and quickly put all the gold, silver, treasures, and martial arts resources into their interspatial rings. After that, Yuan Gongzi counted them. Excluding ores and herbs, there were billions of mystical stones, hundreds of millions of Dao stones, and tens of thousands of celestial stones. Only 1,000,000? Jun Changshao could not hide the disappointment on his face as he picked up a celestial stone that was 10 times purer than a Dao stone. The Black Rakshasa said, "Celestial stones are the highest level of martial arts resources in the upper realm. Since ancient times, they have never been circulated in the market in the form of currency. The reason is that they are too rare. According to records, the earliest celestial stone mine appeared was 100,000 years ago." Jun Changshao heard this and looked at the Taishan elder. He clearly remembered that when he first came to the upper realm, he borrowed 5 kinds of treasures from this guy in order to go back. In the end, he was forced to write an IOU to repay 10 million celestial stones. Damn it! He only got 1,000,000 after destroying a sect, and he actually asked for 10 million. Bah! The system said. "You never even thought of returning it. I swore that if I don't pay it back within 10 years, I'll be struck by lightning." Come on, the host's skin is thicker than the universe. Not to mention 5 lightning bolts. Even 500 lightning bolts wouldn't be able to do anything to him. The so-called oath is just a fart. In this world, the person who understood Jun Changshao the most was not Rose of Flowers, nor was it a core disciple of the sect of all times. It was the system that accompanied him every day. Slow down. Don't break it. On the patriarch peak of Ling Tianxian, Li Qingyang instructed his fellow disciples to carefully demolish many buildings. This was an ancient sect that had existed for more than 100,000 years. Many of the building materials were extremely precious. Rather than leaving them here to suffer the erosion of time, it was better to bring them back to the sect to shine. Of course, as a professional architect, Li Qingyang would not disassemble the materials and then reassemble them as they were. He needed to modify them to match the style of the sect. The High Heaven Celestial Sect was located on a huge mountain with many buildings. Therefore, it took them an entire day to demolish everything. Patriarch, Li Qingyang said, "It's all done. Let's go." Jun Changshao stood up and said, "Let's go to the next one." Swoosh, swoosh. The sect of all times flew up and down, leaving behind a bare mountain. Buzz. However, as soon as they left, a light stream array appeared and covered the entire mountain. Jun Changshao's voice could be heard. The High Heaven Celestial Sect is sealed from now on. No one is allowed to enter without permission. If this place was compared to the ancestral land of the various clans, then the High Heaven Celestial Sect would not only be destroyed, but also completely sealed. 100,000 years ago, they had participated in sealing the territory of the demonic tribe. 100,000 years later, they had participated in sealing the territory of the Stone Statue tribe and the Dragon tribe. Now karma had come to an end. Extra extra. One of the top 10 celestial sects, the High Heaven Celestial Sect, has been destroyed by the sect of all times. The land of the sect has been sealed. That day, under the deliberate efforts of the Drizzle Hall, the news quickly spread to all the major cities and caused an earthquake. Extra extra. One of the top 10 celestial sects, the Hidden Celestial Sect, has been destroyed by the sect of all times. The land of the sect has been sealed. A few days later, another explosive news came. The world is going to change. The world is really going to change. The top 10 celestial sects had ruled the upper realm for 100,000 years. Now that 2 of them had been destroyed, it was enough to show that not only did the sect of all times have the ability to replace them, but they could even surpass the celestial sects. Smack! In a small city, a storyteller put down the gavel and finished his last sentence. Seeing that there was no one below the stage, he said helplessly, "Who would come to listen to something that everyone knows?" "Me." Suddenly, a voice sounded beside his ear. The storyteller turned to look at a man holding a sword who had appeared under the tree. He shook his head and said, "You still came?" "I don't understand." The man under the tree said, "With your cultivation base, why are you living in seclusion in this remote village? Do you want to know the reason?" "I do." "Come, sit down and listen to me." The man under the tree frowned slightly and said, "I don't like to listen to nonsense." "Ha ha ha." The storyteller laughed loudly and said with a serious expression, "I'm living in seclusion here because I've predicted that someone who will change the order of the universe will appear soon." "Who?" the man under the tree asked. The storyteller took a sip of tea and said, "I can't reveal the secrets of heaven, because those who do will have their entire family killed." The man under the tree understood him and did not continue to ask. He changed the topic. "How long do you plan to stay here?" "Let's go now." The storyteller stood up and put away the gavel, paper fan, table and chair. "Where are you going?" "To wander the world." On this day, 2 streams of light silently cut through the spatial barrier of the upper realm and disappeared into the vast universe. Before the storyteller left, he looked at Jun Changshao, who was being extorted by the Supreme Celestial Sect, and thought to himself, could this kid be the person who will change the order of the universe? The patriarch of the Supreme Celestial Sect died in the Aeon Immortal Mountain, and the entire sect was without a leader. The higher-ups did not consider whether the sect of all times would take revenge. Instead, they were divided into several factions to fight for the position of patriarch. After learning about this, Jun Changshao was speechless. This kind of ancient sect that had existed for a long time was really rotten to the core. Forget it. Today, he would destroy it and rearrange the structure of the upper realm so that the younger generation would have an environment to grow and not be suppressed and ostracized. The system said, "You're just greedy for other people's resources. Don't make yourself sound great. Get lost." The other 9 celestial sects all had grand elders overseeing them. If the sect encountered a life-and-death crisis, they would definitely come out of seclusion to fight. However, facing the powerful Vermilion Bird King, the final result was a complete defeat, and they were imprisoned in Tianyuan Prison Pagoda. As the prisoners moved in one after another, Zhao Daodu became arrogant again. After all, his strength was not outstanding in the sect, but at least he was at the peak of the truth-seeking realm. He did not even dare to fight back when he hit them in the face. Everyone had a goal. For example, Yi Xingchen pursued continuous breakthroughs. Zhao Daoda's goal was very simple. With his ordinary identity and cultivation, he could bully all kinds of big shots in the palm of his hand. Boom! Half a month later, when the last celestial sect that did not even deserve a name collapsed, the martial arts resources were swept away, and the mountain was ruthlessly sealed. The 10 great celestial sects that ruled the upper realm for 100,000 years were officially removed from the upper realm and became a passing cloud. How much wealth did they obtain? It was indescribable. As a result, Jun Changshao returned to the sect with a strange smile on his face. Was this the end of the matter? No, the Jietang had not been dealt with. This organization, supported by the 10 great celestial sects, had survived to the end. It was really unexpected that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.